Okay, what's going on, family? What's going on? Try to do this real quick and see how that turns out, how this turns out. So apparently, person by the name of Khonsu Amun Min Re has some kind of grievance that he wants to resolve as it pertains to several claims that he made on a post that I put up. He's saying that he will be available after 7 p.m. His time. He said that he's an hour behind me, so it's 8:07 p.m. now. So waiting for him to join in and send a request. He claimed that he'll start the discussion while he's in a car driving, and he'll get back to me. I mean, typically I'm not even available around this time, but you know, I'll make an exception here. I have no problem with that, right? So shout out to Lynette Connor and Levon M. Jones. Good evening. Shalom and peace to y'all. So y'all tag him. Y'all tag him and bring him up in here so he can send a request. So I can have this dialogue with him real quick. Let me see. I think I could. Let me see if I can share this real quick. Hold on. Yeah, I don't see him. Let me see. Let's see if this works. Nah. Yeah, I ain't gonna be able to add him. Y'all tag him in this real quick. I already tagged him in the description, but I mean, it's not letting me invite him to the broadcast. I think that's because we're not friends on Facebook. That's probably why. But he was still talking up to me about 10 minutes ago. Peace and shalom to y'all for watching. Thank you for joining in. So, I mean, people may not know, those of you who are not aware of the context, the background, the context of this discussion, y'all can go back and check out the post that I made. I put up a post called Behind the Hieroglyphs, Material Evidence of Ancient Egyptian Texts by Margaret Geoga from Brown University. And I put up an article of hers that goes into, describes handwriting, you know, the mediums in which the text was placed upon, and things of that nature. So it gave a lot of good background information as it pertains to, you know, the hieroglyphs, right, and the material evidence behind it, because you have immaterial, material, and so forth. So I see him right here. Hold on, let me see. Let's see if he jumps in.
Yeah. Okay, all right, I hear you now.
It's all good. All right. You had to pull over? You had to pull over?
Right. Nah, I just had to redo.
All right, you still driving? Just drive safe, because I don't want you to get overly passionate and get into an accident. You feel me?
You good? Nah, you good. You good. I got it. I got my little phone.
All right, that's what's up. All right. So now that I got you on, I know you driving, so you know, we could just talk about a couple of things a little bit so you get situated. If I don't have time later, I have feedback. I think it's through your phone. Somebody said unplug it from the car stereo. Oh, okay. All right, cool. It's okay. I'll work through the echo. No biggie. All right. So since so far, I appreciate you for coming on. I mean, we've been talking back and forth for some time now. And I had a little bit of time, free time, where I can dialogue. So that's why I wanted to highlight you a couple hours ago. but I know that, you know, you had a schedule as well, so I want to respect that. You know what I'm saying? So just, I'm gonna give you a few minutes, and you just lay out for me what your issues is, your concerns, your grievances. We'll address those points that I outlined in regards to what you stated on the post. So go ahead.
Okay. Basically, my thing is, like I say, I don't even really do the debate thing with. I do, but not with like Islam, Judaism, or Christianity. And to me, it's I'm like, I've dealt with that 10 years ago. But uh, my thing is with you, I respect you. You're a good brother. You know what I mean. I respect you. I respect your works and stuff like that. But I heard you admit several times about the historical origins of Judaism or Hebrew or whatever terminology you want to use as to what you subscribe to. Um, and I've heard you, from what I understand, you are aware, and you never have tried to refute the fact that what they call Hebrew or Judaism. I just say Judaism because that's what mainstream call it, whether it's Hebrew Israelite, Orthodox Jew, Messianic, whatever they term it as Judaism. So my whole thing is, if you accept the fact that Judaism is a byproduct of Sumerian and Egyptian um, teachings, then why stay there? Why not go to the origin? You see what I'm saying? Why not deal with the root of what it is? For instance, I'd rather have something in its purest, pristine form as opposed to watered down. So I'm a little concerned because you one of the most intelligent brothers that deal with those teachings that I've ever came across. So my question is, why, if you acknowledge the fact that the source of the Judaic or Hebrew faith is indeed Sumerian, Mesopotamian, what do you want to call it, and Egyptian, why not return to the source? What keeps you there?
Gotcha.
That's
All
my
right.
question.
So let me address a couple of things real quick. I think there's still a little bit of feedback.
Let me see if I can mute this.
Not, yeah,
This
you can
mic
mute
is.
the mic, but I
I'm
want
gonna
the
do that.
speakers to be there so you can hear me.
Okay. I don't know if
All
I'm
right,
gonna try it now. I'm just
that's
turning it
better.
on.
Can you still hear me? All right.
Yep.
All right. So let's address that. All right. So the first thing I want to do um, is be able to define this term source. Okay. And I appreciate the compliments. Again, I seen some of the stuff that you've done as well. So I was like, okay, well, this brother seemed like he knows his stuff, and he's well versed in Pop's work. So we should be able to dialogue some of those things as well, even if it requires a critique of his position in regards to my community, right? Because I think that's pretty much how we got linked up because of the discussions I was having last year. You know what I mean? But anyway, so when we use the term source, that term source is very generic unless we're able to define when we say source. When you say that Judaism, because I don't subscribe to Judaism, and anybody who's an Orthodox Jew who has examined what my position is, they will agree with you that this is not Orthodox Judaism. That's the first thing. Even Reform Judaism is not defined as Reform Judaism either. Um, so when we say the term source, and you can the source comes from Egypt and Sumeria, then when we look at the Israelite culture, and this is interdisciplinary, so we're not just talking about limitations in regards to the literature. We also are talking about archaeology. We're talking about any kind of historical events. we're talking about a cross-cultural analysis with sister cultures, etc., in order for us to properly ascertain what culture these people had. No ancient culture in what's termed the Near East, which composes of Kemet in academic terms, all the way to Mesopotamia. Nobody lived in a vacuum, which means you're going to see acculturation and shared influences that go both ways because nobody lived in a vacuum. Trade occurred. People migrated from one region to another for different reasons, whether it be from a famine, whether it be for economic trade, whether it be to get certain metals. For example, the Bronze Age consisted of putting tin and copper together. Kemet did not have all the tin and copper in order for them to use the bronze working tools. Also, there were trees that were taken from Lebanon and brought to Kemet in order for them to create certain items, where there's be a temple, and then later on we will see the acacia wood would be used to create coffins during the intermediate periods, etc. So trade has always occurred back and forth. We know the origin of trade based on how things navigate via looking at archaeology. One example of that would be pottery. So the examination analysis of pottery will let us know about migrations between certain ethnic groups, because that would be what's called a ethnic marker in regards to a particular culture of people. So whenever the term source is used and saying, well, this is the source, I mean, it's very difficult to ascertain that, especially if you're going back to Nabta Playa, a time period which is about 8,000, almost 8,000 BCE, before there was even any written materials done. You know, when you go and read the book Visible Language, you'll see the development in regards to the hieroglyphs and how it came from its original petroglyphs and made its way into administrative writing system that was used to document the elite in regards to affairs, in regards to political affairs, in regards to things as it pertains to when the suit and is passing on as transition. So NAPTPLY didn't even have a writing system. So that means the only thing that we can do to ascertain what the belief system of the people of mastered with NAPTPLY is in regards to the tools that they left behind. There was excavation that was done there, and they was able to discover the group of people that was there, and they were semi-nomadic, right? So they didn't even stay there. They went there during certain seasons of the year. So there's no way that somebody can tell me that they know exactly what the people at NAPTPLY believed, to say that a migration occurred from that route that split, and one group went to Sumeria and the other group went to Egypt, and then later on, both Egypt and Sumeria later influenced what we will call ancient Israel. Now, the Israelites have never encountered the Sumerians. If they encountered the civilization of Sumeria that existed, that had their kings on the throne and so forth, what documentation that we have that they ever interface with them? The Akkadians took over the Sumerians, and in doing so, they've appropriated their culture. And what they did was certain words that was in Sumerian was transliterated over into Akkadian, which Akkadian is an East Semitic language. Sumerian is not a Semitic language. So when we're saying that this Sumerian civilization influenced these peoples, the only way that could have been done during a time period in which we have the emergence of the Israelites in Canaan had to be through to an intermediary such as the Akkadians. Now, all of this will depend on at what point in history the ethnogenesis of the Israelites. To say that, oh, they got everything from Egypt and they got everything from Sumeria. Well, we know according to the literature that they have created their story to determine that their origin came from Kemet first. Later on, we have a situation where Bereshit, the book of Genesis, is created in order to give a more of a cosmogony and Genesis account for how they came to be. And this is where we get the patronym for Abraham, in order for him to account how we have the relationship between the Edomites, how we have the relationship between the Israelites, how we have the relationship between the Moabites, the Ammonites, and the Midianites. All of these peoples who are supposedly have a similar ancestor in which they are neighboring tribes. So there had to be some kind of story that was written in order to determine how did the various tribes come together, why are they at odds, why they settled where they settled. This was penned down much later. Okay, so the parts of the culture that you're saying is influence, like for example, you had mentioned Adam, Eve, Cain, Abel, Seth, and you're saying that this came from the Ennead. When we go and study Heliopolis, and we have various works that when you get settled, I want to bring all the academic consensus for you in regards to Heliopolis. And we understand what the cosmogony story is. When you look at Adam, Eve, and so forth, that's not a cosmogony story. Now, that may be an anthropogenesis story. Wait, hold on. And I'm handing it back over to you. I got you. But it's not a cosmogony story. The purpose of the Ennead is to explain the beginning of the universe that was known to the ancient Kemetic peoples. And in doing so, you have Re, and the representative of Re cannot be Adam because we don't have a true consort for Re in the Ennead account.
Ray's not Adam.
And Adam had Eve. And then if we're going to continue to look at it, you have Shu, Tefnut. We're talking about group of consorts. Cain, Abel, and Seth, there's no consorts for them. So if that's one of the, there is, so the consort for Cain, Abel, and Seth, according to the literature itself, which will be the primary since we're speaking about the literature, is who? And how are you comparing that to the Ennead? Who do they line up with? Is Adam Re or Atum?
Adam and Eve is Geb and Nut.
Go ahead.
Right? Now you know this. You know that Cain and Abel both had sisters, both had siblings. Just because it wasn't
it is recorded
doesn't mean that, because you have to ask yourself, how did they procreate?
The text does mention that they had brothers and sisters.
You have to ask yourself, how did they? The text does mention that they had brothers and sisters. Right. Okay. So that's but before we get there, because you went from Naphtali to this to that, let me go back to the Naphtali thing, right? If you study Naphtali Nubians, when I get settled, I can provide all my sources for this. But the problem with novice Kemetic students is that they want to stick on Kemet, and they don't realize, like Dr. Ben said, that Kemet is a baby compared to other Nile Valley civilizations.
I agree with that.
Right? When you study right, and the basis of me saying that the Naphtali Nubians were the precursor for the Kemet civilization and others is because of archaeological findings. That the petroglyphs that you're talking about, they found those. They have a calendar system. It's called the Naphtali stone megaliths, right? Which predates the age of what scholars say the Dendera of the Temple of Hathor is. Now, if you do the studies on the Nubians of the they call them they were known as astronomers back then, because it's the oldest known calendar. When you do the studies about their migrations, you'll find out that at a point in time, like you said, a famine hit. Oh, excuse me, it wasn't a famine.
There you go.
It was a drought. And this drought caused those, right, and this drought caused those Naphtali Nubians to migrate up, right? After they migrate up, scholars say that they settled for about 1,000 years, and then went back down into Naphtali.
So where's the evidence for the migration of them into Sumeria? Okay. Where's the evidence for the migration of them into Sumeria? Oh, okay, go ahead.
I'm getting to that. The evidence for that, yeah, the evidence for that migration into Sumeria. Well, first of all, you gotta let's get something straight, right? This is a basic common knowledge. Everything, Africa is the origin of everything.
I don't disagree.
They started in Africa and they migrated out. You know what I mean? So me saying that the Nubians of Naphtali migrated to Sumeria is really not far-fetched when you come to the conclusion that everybody started.
Well, then that's an assumptive then, right? Because unless you can show their migration from Naphtali, which is in Kemet, by the way, in the south, Naphtali all the way to.
I wouldn't say it's in Kemet, because if you study the gnomes, the Sepats, in the Metanetta, Kemet was really just the name of a specific gnome. That whole entire region was never known as Kemet, and this is what I get into it with orthodox Kemetic scientists about. But I can show you, like I say, when I get settled and give you my resources, I can show you specifically how they migrated northwards towards, I'm gonna just say, Giza Plateau,
Giza.
you know, and they settled for 1,000 years, and from there they migrated to Sumeria. Now, even in the Torah or the Bible, right? And this is what I've tried to explain to a lot of my biblical brothers and sisters, right? It says that because a lot of people say, if you, according to modern day biblical scholars, they say that modern day Garden of Eden is in Iraq. That's what they say. That's what modern day biblical scholars say, that Iraq.
So wait. Hold on. So
In the
when you say it's in the Garden of Eden, the question is where in Iraq? Iraq is a big place. The question is where in Iraq?
I haven't done any detailed studies on exactly
Gotcha.
what,
Because
where
some
they
people say that some people say
Google,
that the Gan or the garden was also in the Lebanon forest, where we had the cedar trees at. That was also considered the Garden of the Gods as well. So in academia,
yeah,
it's not there's no bottom line in regards to where the Garden of Eden is, because according to academia, that's just a myth.
right,
So
exactly.
it's not really a physical place unless you are ascribing part of the myth to an actual place in history, which would be historical fiction, right? So that could be that it was appropriated, that they say, look, you know, here's a forest where we see a lot of plentiness is coming from. So we believe that this is where the origin of man is, because everything in this forest is there that can sustain man. So it's not just it's not just what scholars say it is. What's the understanding behind why they propose that a ethnic group of people would appropriate a particular location and add a myth to it? There's reasons for that, right? If you study the Lebanon forest, you understand why it was considered the Garden of the Gods, not just in the Canaanite cultures, but also in Mesopotamian cultures. Matter of fact, when we go into the New English, it makes a reference to Lebanon and the cedar trees. So I can pull that up for you as well, and we can get into that. Yeah.
Now hold on now. Yeah, now I'm not I'm not saying that I subscribe to that. I'm just saying that what modern day scholars say that the Garden of Eden was located somewhere around
Okay.
Iraq.
If you can cite a couple of them with me when you get home, I would like to go and research that. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I will. Now we know that Iraq is modern day Sumer, Mesopotamia, whatever you want to call it. Okay. Now, when you get into the Bible, Torah, whatever you want to call it, it says, right? And this is what I have to explain to biblical people that accept the Bible. It says that God made a garden in the book of Genesis. It says that, and after God made Adam and Eve and saw that they were good, so on and so forth, it said he planted a garden eastward. And there he placed man and woman whom he fashioned from the ground. So if we know that Africa is the cradle of civilization, if we know that the oldest bones and oldest archaeological evidence is in Africa, then it makes sense that east of Africa is Sumer, Mesopotamia, Middle East area. So I'm saying that to say that even, and I don't subscribe to the Bible, but even if you go by biblical terminologies, it ties right in line with the out of Africa theory, because according to the Bible, God made God made Adam and Eve west of wherever he planted that garden. And modern biblical scholars say that garden was in Iraq. So if you common sense, what's west of that region is Africa or the Nile Valley civilization. So this is what we know.
So it's interesting because the text also mentions 4 different rivers, right? 4 distinct rivers, correct? 4 distinct rivers.
Yeah, Gihon.
And then it talks also about, we get the Nile, right? You have the blue and you have the white Nile, correct? All right, and then we know an allusion to this is made when the deity covenants with Abraham and says to him, I'm going to give you the land between these two great rivers, the Nile and the Tigris Euphrates. Okay, so that means that we can safely ascertain that if we see within the early cosmogony story that there are four rivers that are going out from this garden, that means they all had a meeting point at some place. So if any of those rivers are existing today, the question that we have to ask ourselves is, if this was planted east in Mesopotamia, this again, we're talking according to the cosmology story, right? The anthropogenesis story. If this occurred, there are two different things that are issues with it. Number one is, at what point did all these rivers come from the same source? Because if we look at Iraq today, which is ancient Mesopotamia, we know where those Tigris and Euphrates rivers come from. When we look at the Nile, my bad. So we know where those rivers come from. So according to the cosmogony story, it's obvious that when the story was put together, there was only two explanations. Number one, it was a myth in order to account for the cosmogony and the anthropogenesis story of this culture of people. That's number one, because we don't see anything about four rivers in Kemet. Cosmogony and anthropogenesis stories. We don't see that also in Sumer either. That's not how their cosmogony and the anthropogenesis stories begin. So either these people understood that they lived between these two rivers, and at some point in the past, they had a common stream, number one. Therefore, they created a myth behind that. Or number two, the formation of how things was passed down from the earliest man until their point that they were able to capture in their oral tradition, was able to identify certain rivers that did stream from the same source in which the actual narrative itself comes from. But that element or that part of the beginning story, we don't find that in Sumer, and we don't find that in Kemet.
Okay, now because I want to clarify something. I don't subscribe to that. I don't.
That's fine.
Subscribe to that. I was just simply using that as an example. This is the point I'm trying to make. It's a proven fact that the first humans migrated from Africa.
I don't dispute that.
To
okay.
Other parts of the world, right? Okay. Okay. Now, the Bible backs that up. If you want, for people that believe in the Bible, it backs that up by saying that Adam and Eve were created somewhere and then placed eastward. And that eastward is Mesopotamia, Sumeria. So west of that has to be Africa.
I'm listening.
I'm just using
All right,
that
go
as
ahead.
a small example. It's not even really. Okay. Now, then, going back to the Naphtha Playa migrations, when people talk about Kemet and Nubia, they always bring up the 25th dynasty. When Nubia invaded, they was fighting, boom, 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 got kicked out, whatnot. But they don't never go into the Nubian origin of. So when the Nubians of Naphtha Playa migrated, they went and set up Kemet. They went and set up Sumeria. They went and set up. If I am mistaken, I forget the linguistic terms, but it's like 5 or 7 different kingdoms that was set up. You see what I'm saying? When they originated from Naphtha Playa, Nubia.
So okay, let me ask you a question. The calendrical system for Sumer, is it similar to what we find in early proto-dynastic or early dynastic Kemet?
The calendar system of Sumer is based on the numbers.
Is that the same? Is that the same thing that we see in proto-dynastic Kemet? Okay.
I don't think so, because the calendar system of Tahuti is
so
based
therefore
on
we have a dissimilarity there, correct?
The calendar system. Yeah, I'm not saying that everything is totally similar, but what I'm saying is, I'm gonna say a good 75 to 80% of everything when you're dealing with, whether you want to say Kemet or Nubia and Sumer, is tied
Wow.
in.
So
Besides the
wait.
calendar
That's a substantial
Okay.
number to say that up to 80% of the cultures are the same. Is that what you're saying? Wow. Now, I'm glad you put that on record.
Yeah. And I'm gonna say, because once again, this is where a lot of Kemetic scientists slip up, because a person who studies Sumeria or a person who's Hebrew Israelite will say, well, y'all got this from Sumeria, y'all got that from Sumeria, and that's true, because the Sumerians had a strong influence on dynastic Kemet. Stuff like the caste system, the wearing of beards, the blood sacrifice. I mean, all kind of stuff. You can see those similarities. Even when you go to Sir Flinders Petrie's work, when you go to the Narmer palette, when you talk about the Anu people, the Falcon people, all this stuff, they found out that there's so many similarities in there. That's why I say when you get to the origin of Kemet, which is Nubia, then that's where the line
let me ask you a question.
drawn. But
why would you assume that they came from a recent source as opposed to trade really causing acculturation between the two groups? Why are you ruling out trade and acculturation? Correct.
Between Kemet and Sumeria? Why am I ruling out
why are you
trade?
ruling out acculturation by means of trade and other reasons why people will migrate from one region to another? Because you get cultural diffusion when you have acculturation, right? And with cultural diffusion, people can bring, like, for example, if I'm from Jamaica and I move to Crown Heights, Brooklyn, and I know that in Jamaica we make beef patties, right? Or we do jerk chicken. And I go to move to Brooklyn and I'm living in Brooklyn, the food that I get, right? I'm making it there in Brooklyn. So time is passing by, and it gets to a point where now my cultural food is being transmitted to a group of people there, and now I see they eat hot dogs. So now I start eating hot dogs, but I never lose my cultural identity in regards to my food. If somebody from the outside came there and they saw me there in Brooklyn, and they saw a regular African American in Brooklyn, for them to say, oh, well, you know what, man, they all came from Jamaica, because now the African Americans are eating patties. That's a false assumption. Right now they may have all came from Africa, but we're talking about recent, that the reason why they eating beef patties is because that was a cultural dish that was from Jamaica, and somebody by means of migrating from Jamaica came there and shared that cultural dish, and therefore you have acculturation, where you have two cultures side by side, where they still have their cultural identity, but cultural diffusion goes on where they start to borrow things from each other because of trade, or maybe intermarriage at some point, or whatever the case may be. So what I'm saying is there is extensive evidence for trade amongst Mesopotamia and amongst Kemet, right, or Egypt. And we see that, and that also can account for a lot of the similarities because of migrations and trade. So we can't rule that out and say that the Naphtha Playa people.
I'm not ruling, not to cut you off.
Okay.
I'm not ruling that out. But I would use the trade thing more so as when the Hyksos Hekachasu invaded Kemet for 400 years, then were driven out, and then picked up those customs from cultural appropriation. I would say that. I'm not saying that. We know that there were trade between the Narmer palette, kind of explains that. I'm not saying that. Well, the reason I'm starting with Naphtha Playa Nubians is because Naphtha Playa predates Sumeria, Kemet.
It predates the civilizations
everything.
there. I agree. Okay.
Right. So that's the reason I'm starting with the source of Naphtha Playa Nubia. Because from Naphtha Playa Nubia, they tell you that they migrated after a drought, stayed for 1,000 years, then came back. That's when the land got split between what they say Upper Kemet and Lower Kemet. Okay. During the time that these, I'm gonna say, I really like to even say, I don't like to say pre-dynastic. I'm talking before Nakata. I'm talking 8 to 10,000 BC is when these people migrated over to Sumeria and actually set that civilization up.
Wait, wait, say that
So
again.
this
Say
is
that
the
one more time.
origin.
The
This
last
is
thing you said.
that the Naphtali Nubians migrated
Uh-huh.
from that area and migrated to what's called Sumeria and set up
Wow.
that
I
civilization.
need you to supply evidence for
Yeah.
that. Whenever you get a chance. All right. So the
I
second
got
thing
you.
is,
I got you.
go
And,
ahead.
let me explain. What,
Okay.
hold on. One more thing. Let me explain. Let me give you a little information or a little
Okay.
insight into the sources that I got. It's because Sir Henry Rollins was the first person to decipher or to discover the
Okay.
cuneiform tablets, right? Dr. Clyde Winters did a essay on it. I think I posted it in the chat on Facebook when we were talking. Sir Henry Rollins, the person who deciphered and first discovered these Sumerian tablets, even himself said that the Sumerians are of Kushite
Now
lineage.
you are aware that Sir Henry Rollins is an outdated source, extremely outdated in the realm of Assyriology. You're aware of that.
Outdated in the realm of Assyria.
If that's what some people want to
Wait.
say,
It's not what some people
okay.
say.
How's he
It's the
outdated?
general consensus that his work that he did has been updated. Like since then, you had Samuel Noah Kramer, who
Oh
so which means his
yeah.
initial
Right.
findings was based on assumptions and scientific assumptions at that, but assumptions that later on today, if we look at the works of more recent scholars, they have undermined a lot of his initial thoughts in regards to the origin of these people. And I'll share that with you when you get home. I don't want to bring out
Dr.
sources
Clyde,
and make this
okay.
an unfair discussion because you're not home yet, right?
Yeah, right.
I got it.
Exactly. But Dr. Clyde Winters is a living scholar with a PhD in linguistics and all kind of other stuff right now, and he is verifying and validating what Sir Henry Rollins said. I'm not saying that it hasn't been more recent discoveries since Rawlinson. I'm not saying it hasn't been more discoveries, but what I'm saying is, if you have to think about, it's common sense almost. The Sumerians didn't just pop up in Sumeria over there.
I agree. I agree. There's different theories on it. Like you have the recent out of Africa origin of mankind, and then you have the multi-regional evolution of mankind, right? So there's two competing theories where the recent out of Africa theory is the more prominent theory, but you still have another minor theory in regards to the multi-regional development of mankind, which means that all of the hominids before Homo sapien or Homo heidelbergensis, you had these hominids in various regions around, what we would call the Near East, and then eventually they independently evolved into Homo sapien, similar to what we have in Africa, right? But let's move a little bit further because I want to save some time. Let's move a little bit further to the other claims you made. I had to have them put them down so that I don't forget it. You said that Sumerian culture is Egyptian culture. Do you stand by that? Egyptian culture. Do you stand by that?
Yeah, it's
Wait, so similarities does not mean something is something else.
Wait, so similarities.
It's like me and you can play sports, right? Like you can play basketball, I can play basketball. You could shoot like me, I could shoot like you, I can play D like, but that doesn't mean that you're me and I'm you.
I don't need the
right? That doesn't mean that we're the same person.
I understand that.
Go ahead.
But let me explain. When I say Sumerian culture is Egyptian culture, when I say that, what I mean is both Sumerian and Egyptians share the same ancestry.
Okay, so hold that. All right, gotcha.
So when you get into, even when you get into the pantheon of deities, all that stuff, and this is what I say is not knowing for people who study Kemetic science, right? And I got into a debate with a brother about this recently. I'm like, you study Kemetic science, but you don't know crap about Sumeria, Mesopotamia. You're missing so much because of the trade routes, the similarities, the common origin. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. So when you look at that, right? One thing you got to understand is, and this is getting back into when I say the Sumerian and Egyptian origins of the Hebrew or Judaic faith or whatnot. When you go, and the reason I say that is because when you look at the archaeological
Khonsu, I think your hand is covering the mic.
Egyptian text. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. It's better now.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you look at the and I stand on this saying that Hebrew or Judaic, whatever you want to call it, is a byproduct of Sumerian and Egyptian teachings. The reason I say that is when you look into the Torah and the biblical stories, you can find these exact same stories recorded in Kemet and
Give me an example.
in Sumeria.
Give me an example.
Which predate.
Give me an example.
Okay, the flood.
The flood. Okay.
It's a flood story.
But that flood story is not original to any of those cultures that you just spoke about. You got flood stories in North America from the Native Americans as well.
That's my point. That's my point. But what's the oldest flood? What's the oldest recorded record of a flood or a great flood?
Yeah. So if we look like the Enuma Elish, right?
Then,
if we look like the
so if well, actually that's not even the oldest, but let's do this. If the Native Americans is over here in the Americas and they've been displaced from those other peoples for thousands of years before any written record was done, and they come up with a deluge narrative, where did they get that from? Because that would
because if you study, hold on, let me answer that. Because if you study Hopi Native American oral traditions, they tell you that they come from Africa. They tell you that the black seed is the original seed, and they came from there. So you have to understand that oral tradition existed.
Exactly. So therefore, it's hard to trace the source of anything.
Yeah. So the Hopi Native Americans wasn't saying that there was a flood during their time, because archaeology proves that certain parts of what's now desert in Africa now was once.
Yeah. For example, the Sahara, due to desertification, actually over time it grew dry and drier, and because of that, you have a situation where the desert has been expanding because of certain cofactors and conditions. But prior, because we find certain fauna of plants, and we find certain animal bones in the Sahara, leads archaeologists to believe that that was once a populated region with certain animal life that typically exists in regions that are more forested, right? So I agree with the desertification process that occurred too. And it just didn't happen to the Sahara, right? It happened to various areas in the East as well. But when you say the flood, I don't know who claims that the flood is original to the Bible. People still say that? I'm asking you because now you're talking about me. You say I'm a fool brew. You say I'm a fool brew, so I want to know. I'm trying to understand, like I've never made that claim, right? So I don't know if you're using me to represent all the entire Hebrew Israelite community, but I don't represent all the Hebrew Israelite community. So
listen, Divine. That's why I said. Listen, that's why I said it is my personal conviction that that what you're doing is that you are really a student of Africa, of Kemet and Sumeria, posing to be whatever Hebrew denomination you want to come up with, using that to gain a following, to basically start your own sect of whatever Hebrewism, Judaism, RBG, because it's too confusing and mixed up. And you into Kemet and Sumeria too much. So my thesis is you're using your knowledge of the historical origins of Hebrew your own sect of Hebrewism. And the reason I say that is because you know too much about. For example, if I am into cooking and I figure out that this dish I've been cooking from Puerto Rico is really a West African dish. That the origins of my Puerto Rican cuisine comes from West Africa. Of course, I'm gonna go into West Africa and start studying their cuisine. So you know so much about Kemet and Sumeria and their historical origins of Hebrewism, but you choose to stay in Hebrewism, but you'll say, well, the Bible flood ain't the original flood. Well, what? No other Hebrew or biblical student will say that. You're the only
That's
one
only
who say that because
people,
you know
people who don't do interdisciplinary studies and are extremely dogmatic and beholding to the 100% literal nature of the text. They will make claims like that. Okay, but still, there's people who don't. I give you an example. You just named a cuisine or a dish, right? So let's say, for example, I like that dish, and I find out that dish is from West Africa. Why can I not just be a student of food? Why do I have to absorb all my other ethnic time simply because I like the food and that dish actually originated somewhere else? I am, in regards to anthropology, I love anthropology. I study it. I read articles almost every day in regards to anthropology. It's not limited to just the Israelite anthropology. It's extended. So it goes from West Africa. I study West African anthropology, but Egyptian anthropology, Mesopotamian anthropology, anthropology as it pertains to the Native Americans. Like, I just like anthropology. I like artifacts. I like learning about excavational digs. I like reading the reports from the people who found items in situ. I like finding about items that have not been found in situ, but also have a relevance in regards to resolving certain puzzles in regards to development of certain people. So because I have a particular liking to something or I'll be holding something, does not mean I have to absolve my initial standing simply because I'm learning information elsewhere. You understand what I'm saying?
But okay, if what you're saying is true, which I don't believe because you know too much, if what you're saying is true, then eventually you're gonna have to branch out of.
What makes you think
Bible.
I haven't branched out of the Bible? How do you think I know all the stuff that I'm talking to you about right now?
Now when you do that, hold on. Now when you do that, what you saying is the Bible is not the word of God.
Let's slow down. I don't use that term God. I only use that for people who use that term. Wait, hold on. Wait, hold on.
Elohim.
Hold on. Let's slow down for a second. Every culture has their own paradigm in regards to their relationship to their environment. Every culture, ancient culture. No one culture believes that, and this concept comes from the Western realm, that there is one God that made everybody, right? Because they have not encountered every person that's on the planet. So if a person was to sit down and say, okay, the Bible is written in a way in which this is God's word, like, only people who believe in the inerrancy of the Bible will make claims like that. I don't make claims like that because I do textual criticism on the Bible, and I know from the attested original languages and various manuscripts that we have that what we have today is not any of the autographs, hence why you have to do these additional studies. And the same thing is done in Egyptology and in Roman patriology. We have to do certain studies to ascertain the provenance of where something came from, right? So, go ahead.
So let me ask you this. Let me ask you this.
Go ahead.
What is the Torah or Tanakh to you?
The Torah.
Because what's gonna have to happen in order for me to believe that you're not intentionally misleading people to try to create your own branch of superhuman Hebrew teachings, then eventually,
you funny.
Then eventually, eventually you're gonna have to step outside of that. And I'm gonna say that because it is, according to biblical scholars, Judaic scholars, they date the birth of Adam around 4,000.
Wait, slow down. Have you heard of Bishop Usher and his chronology? Okay, because that's where that's coming from. So let's rewind. All scholars don't say that. You have old earth creationists, you have young earth creationists. Well, hold on. The young earth creationists are the ones that will make those type of arguments. Old earth creationists do not make that type of argument. So it's split in regards to academia. Now I can tell you how Usher
I'm
got his
just saying.
chronology
Now, okay,
and how he did it by trying to add up all the years of the
they
people to
got the
try and.
chronology from the daily.
But go ahead.
Yes, exactly. From Jesus on back to Adam. They estimate roughly 4004 BC. Now it's no way.
No, go ahead. I'm gonna let you finish your thought and I'll add. No, go ahead.
It's no way, right, that this can be true simply because they haven't found any archaeological remains or proof of any of the Old Testament characters ever walking the face of this planet, but you have skeletons and fossils in Africa that go back millions of years. So it's gonna have to be. If you're gonna have to one day, you're gonna have to like stop the fuckery. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna have to one day say, you know what? I'm caught in between my scientific archaeological divine prospect, and I'm caught in between my Hebrew, whatever you want to call whatever it is you follow aspect, because you can't mix science and religion. It doesn't.
Let's slow down because that's not true, right? Now,
so one day
if you've ever, and I, like I said, I'm gonna wait till you get home before I bring out all of these books that I have, right? But if you look in the realm of Egyptology, Egyptologists never tell you there was a separation between science and religion. They were always intertwined. Just like when people make this assumption that there's a separation between church and state, and that is the idea of a particular person that they put forth. That idea that has always been like that is a false narrative. That's not true. So I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about for that, right? What doesn't make sense?
It don't even make sense. It doesn't make sense to say that science and religion.
No. That's not what I'm saying. The fact that you're saying that religion and science do not mix as if they've never been intertwined in ancient civilizations is incorrect. That's what I'm saying to you. You want me to give you an example?
When I say religion,
okay.
No. I know what you're saying. When I say religion, you really saying.
No, I'm using the terms that's used in academia. They deem it to be religion. I give an example. If we look in, I don't know, let's pick a culture. You want to do Mesopotamian or Egyptian culture, and I give you example for each one what I mean by science. Let's do Egyptian culture, right, or Kemetic culture, right? So we have various papyruses that deal with medicine, okay? The Ebers papyrus is one of the papyruses that deal with medicine. Correct? Papyrus is one of the papyruses that deal with medicine. Okay, so there are incidences where spells are incorporated into that medical treatise. Why are spells deferred to when there's a limitation in scientific knowledge in regards to certain medical procedures? Why is there deference to spells? And extra worldly deities that is not physically present there with the individuals who are writing this treatise?
Okay, religion. Listen, religion. The birth of religion was 6,000 years ago. There was no religion prior to that, because you can't go into these ancient languages and find any word to equate to what we're calling religion. In Proto-Semitic misnomer Hebrew, the word that you would compare to that would be milah, which would be rights. Right, in the Quran, when it says milah Ibrahim, that's talking about the rights of Adam.
Yeah, just like a Barit Milah is done today in regards to circumcision and naming ceremony. Okay, I'm familiar with that. Wait, hold on. So when we go into religion, define religion, because there's a academic definition for religion. And go ahead.
When I say, yeah, I'm not talking about the academic. I'm not talking about the academic version of religion. When I say religion, I'm talking about Islam, Christianity, Judaism, Buddhism, blah blah blah.
So wait, so Nuwaubian is not a religion?
Organized, man-made religion.
It's classified as one. No. It has the same markers that those other ones that you mentioned have. It has the same markers that those other ones. It don't?
No, it don't. Let me tell you why. Let me
Okay.
let me tell you why. According to the science, Nuwaubian is a science. According to the science of Nuwaubian, there is no word in our language for religion. There's no word in Meduneta for religion. There's no word in cuneiform for religion. The closest you can get would be the word AAM. I'm gonna just say that because in the Wallace Budge Hieroglyphic Dictionary they leave off a prefix. We say ZAM or ZAAM or AAM, which the closest meaning you could get to that would be opinion or conjecture. So Nuwaubian is a science. If we were to say, if you study our lessons, if we were to say, if a person was to ask what our religion is, first of all,
And I say the same thing. Keep going.
You know, we don't believe we're not a religion. And I say the same thing. That's in layman's term, you know. But if you were to have to define it, Nuwaubians are animists.
Okay.
And according to top scholars today, animism would be the world's
Okay, that's what they would say, which
religion.
is just the veneration of nature. All right, so look, let's slow it down for a second, okay? Because I'm telling you, everything you're saying, like I said, I have over 80 of pop scrolls. Wait, Blake, slow down. Slow down. I have over 80 of pop scrolls. I have 4 books of his, and wait, let me finish.
I know you do.
Hold on.
I told
And I have
told you that.
I have over 200 hours of footage, and the reason why I have this is because there was people that I knew back in the day that was into Nuwaubian, and they shared all this information with me. So let me explain this to you, right? When you say religion, is the Abrahamic faiths, and then you added Hinduism, Buddhism, etc. The issue you have with that is that that's not the definition of religion. These are examples of religion. That's not the definition, which means the definition is more overarching and can be inclusive of other things that are properly classified to have the same tenets that these other faiths have that you just mentioned. So I'll give you an example of what I mean by that. If religion, because people say religion comes from religio or religiere, and it goes back to being bound, right? And that bounding could be due to dogmas that's been passed down and handed to you that have been unchecked and unchallenged. And these are a list of do's and don'ts that people abide to in regards to their advancement of piety, correct? Yes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but what I'm a big example of that, of the difference between that is for instance, the word Torah or Torah, right? Which would translate as laws,
that's not what it means.
Commandments.
That's not what it means. It comes from the root word yerah. It doesn't mean statute, laws, and commandments.
It comes from the root word
instructions.
It doesn't mean statute, laws, and commandments. It just means instructions. Okay.
Whoa, wait. It's not my translation. Do you have the halak? Wait. Do you have the Hebrew and Aramaic lexicon of the Old Testament, the halak, which is the academic standard? Do you have that lexicon? Because I have it, and I can read from it if you want.
No, but I can easily get it. I can read from it if you want. So, okay, so answer me this. When you read the Bible and it says, follow my statutes and commandments and laws, what word is there in the Hebrew?
It's Torah equates to instructions. So anything that is translated as instructions, you'll see the word Torah there. Like I'll give you an example of what I mean by that. Can I?
And anything that translates as commandments or law is also translated.
That's not true.
Torah.
We have words for like mitzvot, which means laws.
Because it says that
Torah has to do with instructions. Let me give you an example of what I mean by that. When you go to Mishlei chapter 1, hold on. When you go to Mishlei chapter 1, because I'm putting things within context for you. When you go to Mishlei chapter 1 and you have a situation where the king is talking to his son, he tells his son to listen to the Torah of his mother. Is his mother giving him the statute, laws, and commandments, or does this just mean his upbringing in regards to instructions?
What's the difference, brother? If I give you instructions, listen, if I give you instructions, I'm telling you to follow my commandments. Follow my instructions.
Do you give instructions to your son?
Do you give instructions to your son? If I give you an authoritative instruction, that's a commandment.
So do you command your son?
Do you
have a daughter?
I have a son, but I have a daughter, but yeah.
Do you command your daughter?
Yeah.
Do you instruct your daughter?
Yes.
Is that authoritative in your home?
Yeah.
So therefore, you created a religion
Yeah,
that your
of
daughter has to
authority.
follow.
So therefore, you created a religion that your daughter has to
Come
follow.
on, man. Listen. Listen. Let me stick to this point.
Okay.
Let me stick to this point.
Okay.
I don't want to get off topic.
Okay.
What I'm telling you is, according to the Torah, Yahweh Elohim, whatever you want to call it, gave instructions, laws, statutes, and commandments to people to go by.
It's a theocracy.
This is Toraic.
But you know that's not limited to just the. It's not limited to just the Chumash. We find that in other cultures as well.
We find that in other cultures.
Okay, so go ahead.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that you don't. What I'm telling you is the difference between Nuwaubian and Toraic laws. I don't even know what to properly call you because you haven't really told me what it is.
I think that should have been the first question you asked. You should allow me to define how I identify myself so that you don't create straw man argument.
But before you do that, let me explain to you the difference between Torah, law, statute, commandments, instructions, and Nuwaubian. Nuwaubian doesn't. We don't have laws. We don't have commandments. We have rules according to nature. That means you're inclined by nature to do certain things, act a certain way, eat a certain way, speak a certain language, simply because this is who and what you are by nature. This is your culture. This is your way of life because nature made you whoever and what you are. If you are Chinese, born in China, nature has encoded you with a certain
Nuwaubian also
genes.
ascribes the anthropogenesis of people to extraterrestrial deities. I have Pops work on this, so don't just limit it to just nature.
What's the point? The Bible speaks about extraterrestrial deities.
So what I'm saying is I'm trying to show you similarities. Because you are not being all inclusive in regards to Pop's work. I could bring up stories right now where he explains to you what extraterrestrial deities were responsible for creating man. You know this. This is why you're alluding to the Sumerian origin.
Hold on, wait a minute. They don't have nothing.
Wait. So Nuwaubian doesn't incorporate Pop's work?
Pop's work.
So who laid the foundation for Nuwaubian?
Pop's work. If you read Black Book Part 2, it says these pamphlets or you can go back to the 9-ball. It says these pamphlets in itself is not the science of Nuwaubian. These are guides. Nuwaubian is a universal principle.
So what makes you think that Torah is not a universal principle either?
Hold on. People think that Dr. York authored a shitload of books, and that's Nuwaubian. No, that's not what 9-ball, behind the 9-ball, 1967 says. It says Nuwaubian is the science of the universe. The books are simply guides.
But you don't need to use those guides, right?
Information pamphlets. Do I need to use those guys?
Wait a second. Why do you need those guys if you have the principle of Nuwaubian? You don't need those guys. You can develop them on your own. You can be better than Dr. York. You can be the next polite.
Of course.
So you should.
And see that's.
No, I'm saying so Nuwaubian as a guiding principle. It has to have a foundation somewhere. So what Pops was doing was laying down.
The foundation of let me tell you, the foundation of Nuwaubian.
Yes, I know what 9 ether is. I got you.
Again, you said you have 80. You said you have 80 books. Yet you missed the key. You probably missed
not necessarily because I'm familiar with 9 ether. But what I'm saying is, in even reading those works, there were some authoritative statements that he made as well that a lot of Nuwaubians bind themselves to. Like, I'll give you an example. Let me give you an example. Who created the earth?
Hold on, no.
Who created the earth? Does Nuwaubian tell you who created the earth?
Does
Who?
Nuwaubian tell you who created the earth?
Yes.
Who?
The sun.
People of the sun. We're gonna go into that. People of the sun. We're gonna go into that.
No.
How did the sun create the
created
earth?
The earth.
How did the sun create the earth?
Explosions. Sun flares and explosions. This is a scientific fact. All planets in the solar system come from the sun and got caught up in the gravitational pull of the sun, cooled down.
So
and
what
turned into
elements?
planet or celestial
Wait.
bodies.
Hold
Everybody
on.
knows all planets come
Do
from
you
the sun.
do you believe in the Well, hold on. Let me put it like this. What is going on inside the?
Come on, man.
Huh?
I keep telling you.
Going on inside the.
Yeah.
Huh?
So
Go ahead.
in regards to the sun itself, right?
Yeah.
Because you're
So,
saying that
in
the
regards to the
sun
sun
made
itself,
the earth, which is extremely interesting, right?
Sun
Because
made
we understand that the science, we understand the,
scientific
we
fact.
understand.
It's a fact.
Okay,
That all
so
planets
we
come from the
understand.
sun.
Because I'm gonna get into that science a little bit with you as well, so you can see where I'm going to. Do you believe in the periodic chart?
Do you believe in the periodic chart?
I don't believe in anything. Do I have any knowledge?
Do you
of the
subscribe?
periodic
You
chart?
said
Yeah,
science. It's
we
a
don't
periodic chart
have,
science.
Nuwapo is anti-belief.
You said science. It's a periodic
Okay.
chart science.
So if
Yeah,
it's
the
science,
elemental
what
chart.
elements? Wait.
Hydrogen,
What
lantanium,
elements
yeah.
Science.
does the
What
sun
elements-
consist of?
wait. What elements does the sun consist of?
Mm-hmm.
Hydrogen
Okay. Through
turned
what
into
process?
helium at 54
Through what
million
process?
tons per second.
Fusion, right?
I forget the name of it.
Through what process?
I forget what it's
Okay.
called.
Fusion,
So,
right?
Fusion. There you go.
and I would love to get into. You know what? Let's hold off on that.
And I would
I'm
love
gonna
to
let
get
you
into
get home because I study this. I study this ardently, right? But I wanna.
Listen,
No.
that's why
We're gonna get into that because then you gotta explain to me
Hold on.
about the Anunnaki and them having any role in the formation of what we have here today. We gotta get into that too because Pop spoke about this.
That's okay. Yeah, and Pop don't only speak about it. Other people who study Sumerian tablets.
Do scientists
you
agree
have
with
to
that?
understand
Do scientists agree with that?
Listen, man. Listen. The same way you are attempting to critique me because you can, because I have an answer.
Oh, wait, what?
It's the same thing. Yes, I do.
Wait, is this on record? Is this on record? You say you have the answer to all my questions?
Is this on record?
Khonsu, man.
Yes. It's the same
Stop.
way that I'm trying to listen. It's the same way that I'm trying to tell you. Eventually, you're gonna have to drop the Hebrew shit because you're too far into history, archaeology, and science to foolishness that the Bible teaches.
All right, I'm back. Got about do another 15 minutes, and then I'm gonna get on with the rest of my evening. But that dude Khonsu was funny. He said, "Oh, he cut it off right before." Obviously, the reason why I cut it off is because my family was coming in the house. So when that happens, that gets immediate attention, right? This conversation can hold off on that. So I did not intentionally mean to abruptly cut the brother off, but it occurred as a circumstance of what was going on in my environment that required me to give it my undivided attention, right? Which I was about to say, but I guess my fingers, I was touching the screen and I shut it off. But anyway, Khonsu, I don't know where you at, but we're going to finish this preliminary. Give another 10-15 minutes and we can finish this preliminary. Then when another time when you get settled at home and you got your sources in front of you, we can definitely go into this. So somebody tag him in this. All right, I try to do it by putting his name in it. Somebody tag him in this. Let me finish this up real quick. I want to deal with his last point, whatever last point he was trying to make. Because there was this various ways in which I can address his concerns, but the issue that I have is that a lot of the terms that he's using is out of context, and it's not the lexical value that the words themselves contain, right? It's very generic and is very general, right? We have to be specific. But it's all good. Good evening, Levon. Thank you for joining in. Appreciate your support as always. Centel, yes, I agree. Shout out to Yael, Binance Nails, O'Shea. I mean, we didn't even get that far, but I would love to talk quantum physics with him too, if that's something he's into. Shout out to my sister Navia in the building. Vaughn Parker, what's good? How you going? How you doing? My brother Kwaku, we are back. All right. But anyway, a lot of these times, I just be freestyling unless I'm doing like a real debate or I'm doing a presentation. Then I'll use sources because I realize that a lot of people who make a lot of claims do not have the appropriate sources to validate their claims. In the realm of Assyriology, there are various experts that's in that field, and I wanted to bring several of them, their papers out to him to show him that a lot of the people, he even mentioned Flinders Petrie. Petrie, his work is outdated as well. Some stuff still stands, but a lot of the stuff is outdated. So when people mention sources like that, I just squint my eye at it like. But anyway, and he was telling me that, that Nuwaubian was based on the 9 ethers. Now, what I'm going to do is go into my Dr. York bag and pull out and define that 9 ether concept so we can understand what it is. The 9 ether concept, which is the central tenet of Nuwaubian, does not supersede the teachings or the foundation laid down by Dr. Malachi Z. York. So when we talk about how things originated, you still got to go back to the foundation that was laid down by Dr. York. There's no way around that. So that's why I told him, I said, so can you have Nuwaubian without the guides? He was like, no. I'm like, that's my point. So you still got to refer to those things. And he's talking about the sun created the earth. And I'm like, okay, so what about the people on the earth? Because, Dr. Malachi Z. York wrote a book called People of the Sun, which is a really interesting book. If he gets home, I would like to reference to that. Okay. So now I don't know where he's at. Hopefully, I hope he didn't get into an accident. Hope he's all right. But y'all everybody tag him into this, man. Tag him into this. But anyway, like I said, I just be having fun. I just be freestyling, having fun. People who look at what I teach and the information I share, that I'm just playing around with him. I'm just having fun, right? We're just slap boxing, right? It's not even really sparring. We're just slap boxing. Just kind of feel him out to see, where he's going, because it's interesting that he's still making references to Nuwaubian if you can just use science. If you're going to be that way, because, the root word for science comes from the word knowledge or gnosis, right? But if you're going to be a strict adherent to science, then you don't need Nuwaubian. Nuwaubian is cultural, and people who Nuwaubians will tell you they follow a culture. A culture. That means cultures have a lot of elements in it that are similar to other cultures. Now, he mentioned animism, and then he's going to use, we went from animism to polytheism to henotheism to monotheism. Okay, we understand what that is, but Nuwaubian is not animism. Because if Nuwaubian was purely animism, you would not need any of the foundational guides that was laid down by Pops, a.k.a. Dr. York. What would you need that for? You could just study nature. You don't need any of those guides. So the primitive form he's talking about is animism, where it talks about animism is supposed to be like the worship of nature or the veneration of nature, right? And living in accordance of that veneration of nature, right? I agree, Siobhan. I agree. But anyway, he's talking about I ran or I did something and I'm here now. I tagged him and he's not showing up. Everybody, please tag him in this. I don't want any excuses, right? Tag him in this. Tag him in this. I don't want no excuses. And like I said, I'm going to be really quick because my household's a bit busy and I need to attend to my household, right? So where's he at? Yeah, Jamel, that's when we say Pops, that's who we're referring to. That's what he's called, affectionately called by Nuwaubians. He's called Pops, Dr. Malachi Z. York. All right? Yes, O'Shea, it's talking about the neutron soup. I was going to get into the neutron soup, but, I mean, I don't know if he's really there in regards to physics and astronomy, but I'm going to leave the neutron soup theory alone, right? But anyway, yes, Jamel, I have. So, I think his main issue is saying that I cannot uphold a cultural identity when I research things outside of it. That's the craziest thing I've ever heard. That's like saying to somebody, because you are a welder, the moment that you look at technology, you can no longer be a welder. That doesn't make any sense. You don't have to abandon your cultural identity to study other things. And when you're able to study your culture objectively, then you update the information that's currently held as a status quo within that community. You bring advancement. And that's the purpose of you being here, to take these cultural precepts and to advance them in a contemporary context. Because the environment in which they were created, those principles, a lot of the things that they face in their environment, we don't face today, and vice versa. This is why I tell people you cannot superimpose your eisegetical understanding of your worldview onto the past. And when you're able to look at the text within its ancient Near Eastern context, things don't get spooky. You're not dogmatic. When you understand that Torah simply means instruction, it's not that deep. It's really simple. When you look at the evolution in regards to the text, there's ways to analyze the text and understand the evolution of how the text was compiled. You know, the signatures in regards to the styles of the text as well, answering the doublets, the idioms, or the older archaic idioms. I mean, when you study these things and know that Israel was not in a vacuum, you understand that there was influences all around. And this is with any of those Near Eastern cultures. There was influences from other neighboring cultures. But when we get to the crux of understanding what this culture is, you have to identify all the factors and cofactors that were responsible for the emergence of why this text was laid down, and why the beginning stages of it, which according to the hypothesis, the documentary hypothesis, labels it the Elohist and the Yahwist between the north and the southern tribes, and the purpose of them laying down certain concepts and certain ideas and certain cultural elements into a text. There was a reason why that was done. When you start to see the emergence of the monarchy, and it's really not a monarchy, they believe it to be an oligarchy, because you have a select few that's ruling, not just one person that's ruling. The king himself was not ruling by himself. There was checks and balances during that time period, and that's why the priesthood is equally as strong as the king that's in power, or the royal family. And we notice this because when you study the Amarna period, and you look at the Amarna period and you say, okay, why was there a removal from the typical nome in Kemet to a different region? And the main reason when we study that time period was because the Amun Ra priest was gaining too much control over the kingship, which means that the priest had equal amount of power as the king. When the king in ancient Israel committed some kind of act, he has to go to a priest to get absolved of that act. There's checks and balances. So you got to understand, looking at this culture not as if it was in a vacuum, but looking at it as being in its ancient Near Eastern context. You don't have to be spooky and dogmatic about stuff. You know what I'm saying? And people using a classification of religion, Nuwaubian is considered religion. In Egyptology, Kemet is considered a religion. When we deal with academic studies in regards to ancient Near East religions, Israel had their religion. The Canaanites had their religion. Mesopotamia had their religion. The Assyrians had their religion. The Babylonians had their religion. That's how they define it. Now you can say spirituality, and for him to say, well, we don't have a word for that. Where's the word for religion in the Bible? Is the word there for religion in the Bible? When I talk about the Bible, we're talking about the Tanakh. I'm not talking about the Brit Hadashah, the New Testament. We're talking about the Tanakh. Is the word for religion there? Is it there? Well, that's the foundation. So you're saying that if the culture does not have the word religion, then they're not a religion? What? That's not how classifications work. If you look at the taxonomy in regards to nature, you'll understand that as well. You think animals call themselves birds, reptiles, mammals? You think they call themselves that? You think that when you listen to the birds and how they chirp, that they have some kind of word for being a bird? You think they have that? Or is that an external classification? Okay. Yeah, he said I was trying to mislead people. That's really interesting because, I mean, the work that I put out says otherwise. And he's mentioning terms. It's really interesting he's mentioning terms because, like, what I would like to do with him, since he deals with Sumeria, is let's go into the words, the lexicons, and let's go into the grammar of Sumerian, because what I want to juxtapose is when we take what's in the context, what's in ancient Sumeria, and what Pops was saying in some of his works, he took a lot of stuff out of context as he's borrowing off of a predecessor who also is not qualified in that arena to speak on Sumeria because he doesn't have a degree in that field of knowledge. And we can go trace the province of different things to kind of understand how certain things develop. He says Naphtaliah brought about the Sumerians. What's the source for that? I would love to see that. Then he was like, oh, these were Nubians. But it wasn't in Nubia. It was not too far outside of Cairo that Naphtaliah's site was at. And they had a calendar. And this is why I was trying to show. See, I try to use things such as ethnic markers to help to identify the ethnogenesis of a particular people, right? Ethnic markers are important. You have cultic items. You have the way burials are done. You have pottery. You have tools. You have structures in regards to how they build temples and their houses. And a lot of times these things follow people. I'll give you an example of what I mean by that. One of the things that is attributed to Israelite culture in the Iron Age period is the 4-room house. And that 4-room house, a few of them are found outside of the region in which Israel populated. Very small samples, but the majority of them was in that region to the point where it was classified to be an ethnic marker of the Israelite culture that emerged in the central countryside and expanded out. So when you see this, we also find a 4-room house structure in Kemet. About what is to believe to be a Israelite or a proto-Israelite. I have all that in the Minority Report. I never really brought that information out. But again, this is where you see migrations, or certain these individuals was taken into captivity by the Nasut to work on certain projects in their spare time. Because again, chattel slavery is not in Egypt. Egypt doesn't have chattel slavery. Do they have coerced labor? Yes. Do they have chattel slavery? No. But when people went after they was working in certain areas, and there's a good book that's called the Workers of Pharaoh, if I'm not mistaken. I have that book. Or Pharaoh's Workmen, I think it is. I think that's it. It's called Pharaoh's Workers. There you go. The Villagers of Deir el Medina. That is an excellent book. I have the PDF. And I would encourage everybody to read that book. One of the things that I'm most intrigued about when it comes to Kemet is not the nobility, but how did the middle class live and how did they view those who were in power? Okay? Now, when we have oracles, there was oracles in Kemet. You have processional oracles also in Kemet. How do you account for these processional oracles if there is no such thing as religion as is classified by academia? Why would you need an oracle? But I digress. Again, I don't know where he's at. Maybe he's taking time to get home. Shout out to my brother Chuck Morgan in the building. Zechariah Ben Yisrael. Who else is in here? Yalamed. Who else? Demetrius. Zimri. So anyway, y'all tag him because I'm only gonna be on here a few more minutes and then I'm out of here. Apparently, I guess he thought I was running. Like, hold on, let me read what he said real quick. He had the nerve to even tag me in it. He's funny though. He said he has the answers to all my questions. That is incredible. I've never met nobody of that magnitude before. That's incredible. He says, I cut the video right before he was going to have to confess that his Torah is scientifically wrong. When was Torah designed to be a scientific treatise? Did it say that in the preface of the actual text itself? No. It is something based on culture. Do you think all ancient cultures was based on 100% scientific fact? No. No. So, wow. He says, according to Nuwaubian, all planets in the moon came from the sun. Science confirms this. Well, that's interesting, especially being that the founder of Nuwaubian lived in the 20th century and was able to write about scientific things that was not understood during the time of Iron Age Israel. This is why historical context is important. So if I was writing today a cosmogony story, or let's say I was writing a story on the astronomy of the universe and I was attributing it to nature and cultural elements, Of course, I would be more scientifically accurate because I'm more scientifically literate than they were during that time. But okay, according to his Genesis story, as if I wrote the book of Genesis. This is my Genesis story? That's interesting. God, and that word is not even there in the text, but God created the sun and moon separately. The Genesis story also calls the moon a light. However, the moon has and gives no light. The moon does give light when it reflects light. So it can give. It doesn't have, it's not a source of light, meaning that it's not creating its own light when you understand the makeup of the moon, but the moon is reflecting light. The moon is reflecting light. It only reflects from the sun. So when you see the word there in Hebrew, the word or, which means light, it's interesting because it's not definitive to say that the moon has its own source of light. It just calls the moon a great light because at night when you look up, that's the source of light that you see. Whether it's reflected or whether it's coming from its own person, that's what you see when you look up. So obviously the people who are writing this and putting this together, that is what they're referring to. They never claim for it to be a scientific treatise. So what's going on? But see, that's what happens when you have people that try to refute a person who's not religious. That's what happens when you try to refute somebody that's not religious. And I guess because he's attributing me to the rest of Judaism, that I'm going to hold these assumptive positions and create all these logical fallacies, and I'm not going to do that. That's just not what I'm going to do. I'm simply going to express to you the anthropological understanding of how certain things gave a rise based on climate, based on environment, based on diet, based on the social structures, based on interactions with animals, based on weather patterns, based on your locale. If you're in a high place in the mountains, or if you're in a low place, if you're in an arid region, or if you're in a forested region, if you're in a jungle, all of these things have influences on how you create a myth, a folk tale, folk story, how you generate customs and practices. And you got to examine these things. There's a book called Ancient Israel by Lester Grabb, and he lays down exactly the elements that need to be examined before you can even read the text, because we don't live in the same time period that they did. So until we can understand things within its environmental context, you're going to be misled in understanding the actual text itself. You also must be able to read the text. I wanted to get into the Hebrew also with him, because I realized that a lot of people from that line, they don't really get into the lexical, syntactical, and morphological understanding of the language, because for Dr. York to say that Enoch walked with God and it meant that he physically walked with God, the grammar doesn't support that. So where are you getting this idea from? If you understood the grammar, you wouldn't make a mistake like that. Okay, but that's neither here nor there. So, but anyway, yes, Yael, he did give outdated sources. All right, and that was a big problem, because that goes to show again, his information is outdated. I didn't want to go in beast mode, right? Why would I need to go in beast mode? For number one, I'm at home, and I can pull up my resources at any time, but he does not have the luxury to do that. So I'm going to be very fair. He put a lot of claims on the video, and that's what I like to do with people, get their claims on video. He wants to know, look, why subscribe to the Israelite idea, and I've already laid this out in my works that I thought he watched already, but I guess he hasn't watched all of it. Like, I don't understand. I don't see. I didn't want to be redundant. What I really want to do is get to the motive, not deal with the intention. The intention is, all right, let's get into theology and what the Bible says. That's the intention, but there's a motive behind that. So I've learned to sift through the intentions and get to the motives. And when you get to the motives, to get the provenance of the things that people are saying, a lot of times they don't know. They don't know. So therefore, they are committing several logical fallacies simply because they don't know. And in the case with him, so Khonsu, you want to wait till this weekend? Okay. I mean, if you have 5 minutes, I'll let you give your closing remarks. I'll give my closing remarks and be fair, so this can lead into an actual real sit-down discussion where we both have our resources in front of us. Because trust me, I have thousands of resources. I got hundreds of articles. Hundreds. I told you this is what I do. I read a lot. I read a lot. I research a lot. I compare those things that I read and research with actual experts in the field. So I'm not just at home doing it. Like, I've actually interfaced with academia, whether it's email, whether it's at conferences, whether it's over the phone, whether it's through their lectures that they give. This is what I do. Like, I've accumulated a lot of information so I can put my culture within its proper context. All right. So Khonsu, get on real quick. Let me add you. Give your few minutes. I'm gonna give you a few minutes to give your closing remarks. Because again, brother, I'm not here to attack you. You know what I'm saying? I'll address Nuwaubian. And this go back to Pop's works. Let's deal with the concept of non-ether. We'll get to you and your perspective of understanding, because we're gonna use deductive reasoning to get to your core understanding of what your worldview is. There's a process in which to do that. There's a line of questioning that you do a deductive analytical line of questioning in order to deduce somebody to the provenance of their understanding of their worldview. There's a method to that. And I can share those resources with people if they're interested in how to ask certain questions to get to the root of something, right? But you want to ask me questions, and I'm saying before you even started, you should have asked me, hey, can you lay down what your position is? My cultural subscription is pre-exilic Israelite culture. Pre-exilic Israelite culture. When you understand pre-exilic Israelite culture, this is before the religion of Judaism was laid down. This predates that. It predates the religion of Judaism. So you can't make arguments against Judaism if you understand that I don't subscribe to that. And my objective is to make corrections to dogmas that's out there so that our community could be on the same page. And we don't have to fall victim to people that are using religious argumentation to attack our subscription. Hold on. Let me see if I could bring you on. All right. Are you home?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, cool. So since you wanna revisit it this weekend, we can do that. And your phone is still active. Are you still on Bluetooth?
I got it. What is it? Hold on, I'm gonna get the headphones.
All right. Hope I didn't catch you the middle of changing your clothes and taking a shower and anything like that. All right, cool. Just keep it from the back up. All right, so go ahead.
Can you hear me, or you want me?
I can hear you, but it sounds low. Are you on Bluetooth?
You hear me now?
Savage. Yeah.
All right.
Okay, I don't even hear.
It's a lot of slanderous foobaroos and Chuck Morgan in here.
Chuck Morgan puts in that work.
Chuck Morgan don't put in work. Chuck runs from me.
I've heard what you said. I heard the rumors. I heard you say that before.
Trust me.
Okay, so look.
But anyway,
let me give you. Do you want to finish off the last point you were making, or do you want to give your final remarks?
I want to give my final remarks because.
Okay, go ahead.
I work 12-hour shifts.
Oh,
I
man.
barely have enough time to come home and do anything.
I respect that the fact that you're a blue collar worker and you actually put your hands to the plow and you're working. You know what I'm saying? That's good, because then I can respect your scholarship a little bit more, because I understand the perils of having a normal life and trying to fit time in to do research and study, right? So I feel you. So go ahead. I'm gonna let you go ahead.
But basically,
hold on. Irene Williams,
okay.
When we have our discussion, our formal discussion, that is the first. You read my mind. That's the first thing that will be laid down, so that way it's understood on both parties before we move forward. So I appreciate that. But go ahead.
What is that?
Pretty much, before you have a formal debate, there's a period of discovery to know what both parties want to present. just an idea of what they want to present, not always the specifics. But then also laying down certain terms that have been academically defined that we can agree on, so that way when we are having a dialogue, we can actually bind our arguments based on the agreed upon terms, right? So it's almost like a contractual agreement with terms that we agree on, so that way we can actually have a constructive dialogue, right? But that's what I'm saying. That we can do when we have our formal bill. This is just us playing around. We just playing around. But all right, go ahead. Unless you rock.
Basically, like I say, it's a big and this. Let me just say to people that's watching, this was not me attacking Hebrews. Like I said, I've gone through the Judaism school, Christianity school, and Islam school. In the science of Nuwaubian, it's prerequisite that student teachers go through these different schools. Me personally, I've been Nuwaubian since I was 15. I'm 32. I've never accepted any religion prior to the Nuwaubian teachings. Not saying that it's a religion, but that's why I tell people I was born Nuwaubian. I learned about everything that I know through Nuwaubian. I know about Kemetic science because I'm Nuwaubian. I know about Islam and Judaism and Hindu and Buddhism and quantum physics and all this because of the scrolls that led me to do further research on that. But anyway, so this initially started by because remember I told you, I said I didn't even want this to be Nuwaubian versus Hebrew or me debating a Hebrew, because I'm really honestly I don't even have, it doesn't even drive me anymore. My thing was I was willing to openly allow you to ask me questions about me clarifying things about the Nuwaubian teachings, because you put a video out giving your cross analysis of Dr. York's book, 360 Questions to Ask the Hebrew Israelite, I think. And it's another video you did, I think, where you was talking to Nuwaubian. Y'all wasn't really debating or whatnot, but y'all was discussing stuff. So that's what this was really about. This was about me being open to questions from you.
Now hold on. That's not how you presented it. If that was the case, I got 120 questions I can ask you. I didn't know.
Yeah,
that. I didn't know that's what you was doing, because it seemed as though you were questioning the post that I made and said that was a copy and paste. And I'm like, I'm sharing.
No, I'm talking about way before this. Remember when we talked?
Okay, that's before.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah. I'm talking about the initial,
Gotcha.
because when
got you.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, my closing remarks, because like I say, I got all my resources and all that stuff. So what we can do is we can discuss what we talked about today. We can discuss whatever questions you have for me about concerning the Nuwaubian doctrine, and whatever. But what sparked my interest in you was the fact that, because in my head I'm like, man, this brother know too much to be a follower of the Torah. I'm gonna just say it like that, because what you say, the information that you present as far as archaeology and science and history and language, it contradicts, many of that contradicts very well what you would say your belief system is in the Torah. Because like I was saying earlier, according to the Torah, or according to the Genesis story, it's scientific impossibilities in that book. And you seem like you're a man of science and archaeology and stuff like that, but it just baffles me how you can accept a fictitious religion yet want to use historical archaeology and science. It doesn't mix. So my point is,
mix. You know that, right?
It is supposed to mix.
Wow.
Because in ancient times there was no difference between your spirituality and science. There was no difference. For example, let me.
Go ahead.
For example, let me explain this.
Okay.
in Nuwapo, there was a certain point in time when Doc stopped using the word spirit or spiritual at all.
Where
You know
who?
why? Dr. Malachi York.
Oh, Doc. Okay, I say Pops, but go
Yeah.
ahead.
Pop, yeah.
Mhm.
There was a certain point in time where Pop stopped using that word. He came out with a class called No More God Games.
Okay.
And he would literally walk around that word spirit or spiritual because he would say, I don't want to sound spooky. You see what I'm saying? So during that phase is what he was taking us out of the spiritual to the scientific aspect. During the end of that phase, he was able to show us how to scientifically confirm spirituality. And he did that by way of explaining quantum physics and when scientists cracked the atom and figured out that the atom was also composed of quarks, biaps, zeelies, subatomic energy, and stuff like that, in which he explained that this quantum physics or subatomic realm is what they call the spiritual realm. But in ancient indigenous teachings, they might call it spirit.
And
But
they
in
and
modern science,
and they had the means to do the same analysis that we do today scientifically to determine what a quartz is.
no, I'm not. No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that what they call spirit back then now would be called, or the spiritual realm now would be called quantum physics. So what I'm saying is, it's a it's a thin line you have to draw because a lot of the stuff that people quote is from different degrees of learning. That's why I'm able to sit here and dialogue with you, right? As a 32-year-old man who's been in Nuwaubian, may as well say half of my life since I
Mm-hmm.
was 15. Or, and the same way I'm dialoguing with you, I can dialogue with a Muslim and
Mm-hmm.
quote from the Quran. I
Mm-hmm.
can dialogue from a Christian and quote from the New Testament. I
Mm-hmm.
can dialogue with a Hindu, atheist, whatever. It don't matter. So the point I'm trying to make is like for instance, you was explaining all this historical and archaeological stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yet the book that you subscribe to is full of historical inaccuracies and scientific impossibilities. So what I want you to do on part 2, I want you to be able to explain you how you can say you believe that in Genesis, it said God created two lights, greater light and the lesser light, the sun and the moon, knowing that the moon is not a light. How can you accept that, knowing that that's scientifically impossible? You see what I'm saying? Stuff like that, because that's why I said I honestly feel like you're one of those Hebrews with a little more knowledge, and eventually you're going to branch off and try to start your own sect of Hebrewism or whatever you want to call it. And knowing that the biblical part of it is bullshit, but you're gonna use your scientific and archaeological and linguistic knowledge to control the man. I'm telling you. That's because the first thing I said this nigga's too smart to be a Hebrew. That's what I said, bro.
So look, all right. So let me say this,
Yeah.
right? So again, there's nowhere in the text where it claims to be a scientific treatise. Do you know what a treatise is?
A
Treatise.
treatise, yeah, packed
Okay.
paper, writing, yeah.
So
It
a
don't claim to
scientific
be a scientific
treatise,
book. That's what you're saying.
huh?
You saying that it's nowhere in the text where it claims to be a scientific book?
Correct.
Yeah, okay, I know that.
Okay. So it's not the same thing as the Ebers Papyrus, which gives you a preface to let you know what its purpose is. So therefore, if I find inaccuracies in that, then I can call it out simply because it claims to be a medical treatise. So when something is not designed to be a medical treatise, a scientific treatise, and you critique it as such, you are creating a fallacy. So when you
Okay,
tell
now,
somebody that
now,
understands, hold on, when you tell somebody that
okay.
understands that background information, to say, okay, I want you to defend this scientifically, I can give you a model that best represents, a scientific model that best represents what is laid down in the cosmogony of the actual text. But was that the pure intention of the writers when they put it together? So these
Okay,
are two different
now,
things we're talking about. Now, what I will do for you is I'll give you a scientific model for what we see in the text. But I'm not telling you the text is claiming to be a scientific treatise in order to answer how did all the moon stars. That stuff is not even. I mean, it's hinted at in the text briefly, but it's not giving you
Right.
any background information. It's done that way purposely when you understand why it was put together. So that's number one.
Okay.
Number two,
Mm-hmm.
what I want you to do when you get a chance, I want you to get a book. It's called Ancient Israel. What do we know and how do we know it, by Lester L. Graham. If you want, I can send it to you so you can read it. When you read this book, and this is one of many books that I have, but I
Mm-hmm.
think this is one of my favorites. It lays out some very important things, not just for you, but for anybody. And what I will say is this, because I've studied Nuwapu and I have Pop's works and I know people who are Nuwapians that I have dialogues with all the time, I can also have a conversation with you, being a Nuwaubian, and we can talk about just
Mm-hmm.
Nuwaubian stuff. We ain't got to talk about nothing
Okay.
else. So just like I can sit down with somebody that's in Islam and also have a discussion, just because you're saying that you're past dialoguing with people who deal with what you deem as the Abrahamic faith doesn't mean that you can't speak to somebody that can also speak to what it is that you stand on. We can talk about things
Right.
other than
Right.
the
Right.
Bible, and you will see the
Mm-hmm.
depth and the breadth of what I know. And we can have conversations, and you will even forget that, oh man, this guy said he's an Israelite, because it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't even have to be predicated on that. So whatever knowledge
Mm-hmm.
you want to get into, we can do it. So you don't have
Okay.
to relegate it to just saying, oh, well, because you are Hebrew, I can still have a dialogue with you because you're still, tied to that book and you got to get outside that book. When I can demonstrate for you that I understand the entire conceptual framework of Nuwapu and the stuff that Dr. York put down. And we can have dialogues on
Mm-hmm.
it based on the scrolls and based on what's being taught right now. Because some things that are being taught right now is not exactly what Pops had laid down. Things evolve. Nuwapu is an evolution and
It
understanding.
did that. Yeah, it did that before he was incarcerated
Yeah,
because a
yeah,
lot of
yeah.
people
It
split. Okay, yeah, yeah,
towards
right, yeah, right,
his latter, I'm not gonna say life, but the latter period in which he was
right.
free before he was in prison,
Mm-hmm.
he pretty much
Right,
understood that at some point and he says this in his lectures, they're gonna arrest me and they're gonna lock me up, they're gonna do, he said,
right,
but the concept of what I'm sharing with you cannot be lost. Even though they take me
right, right,
away, this concept has to continuously evolve. So I
right,
will also speak to you with the contemporary knowledge of what Nuwapu is today by people who are leaders within that community. We can have dialogues
right.
about that. But before we
Now,
get to that, because you singled out the Israelite paradigm, what I want to do is show your misconceptions behind what it really is. And it's the same misconceptions that Dr. York had as well. At his time, he knew a little bit more than a lot of other people. So I give him credit for that. But in today's day and age, knowledge is too vast, academia is too
listen,
accessible
Doctor
in
York,
order.
Doctor York,
Go
Doctor
ahead.
York had, Doctor York had, and was the Rabboni of a Hebrew community.
So does
I
that mean
really
that he's
don't.
a
Hold on,
qualified
hold on.
academic scholar?
Of course, of course. You
What?
now let me say this.
And you
The
know I know
reason
that.
hold on. The reason you know so much that you do know about Hebrew is because of the 80 books you said you have from Dr. York. Now nobody's gonna purchase 80.
Wait,
Yeah,
you gotta slow
yeah.
that down. These are
Nobody's gonna
conspiracy theories
purchase
right now.
Nobody's gonna purchase 80. Let me tell you this. I would never in my life buy 80 Hebrew books. I would never buy 80 Christian books. I would never buy 80 Nation of Islam books. They
If
ain't
I
got
wrote
80
if I
books,
wrote
but
80
I'm just
books, you
saying.
wouldn't purchase none of them?
I wouldn't purchase 80. You have 80 of this man's
No,
books.
I'm saying, would you purchase any of them?
Maybe one or two. Because what I'm trying to tell you is this stuff what you is I've been there. And this is why I don't enjoy. It's not even and you said it. You said a key point, and that's your best, and not your best defense, but that's the best defense for any religious person trying to debate a scientific person is because, like you said, the book doesn't claim to be a science book. So I have to know immediately I'm dealing with a person who has a belief system. I don't have a belief system.
You
I don't
do. You
accept
have a
it.
belief
No,
system.
no, 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 no,
And
no,
when
no,
we
no,
have our
no,
dialogue,
no,
I'm gonna prove it to
no,
you.
no.
Okay.
Listen, brother. Listen.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe nothing. Everything, and this is what differentiates
That's
me. This
interesting.
is Listen, this is
Yeah.
what differentiates me. This is what differentiates me from most Nuwaubians,
Mm-hmm.
because it hasn't been anything that Dr. York ever taught that I haven't been able to confirm or research with other outside
Say that
sources.
one more time, please. Put this on
I
record.
said, I said this is the what differentiates me from most Nuwaubians is because there is nothing that I've ever read from Dr. York's books that I haven't been able to confirm from outside sources, which is why I take pride. A lot of times I get into a debate with somebody and I won't mention Nuwapu. I will never quote from a Dr. York book, and I'll be teaching him Nuwapu and he won't even know it. Because the ability to be able to teach that without having to reference to his books is really what makes you a supreme being. Because if you can't confirm it for yourself, it's not the truth. It's not a fact. You see what I'm saying? So
Well,
that's why I told
that
you.
cultural principles is not an exact science. Are you aware of that?
Cultural principles, yeah, a lot of different cultures got different
Which means you
principles.
can't take it and put it in a lab somewhere. Now, you could do some kind of analysis on it, right, to try and empirically understand what's going on, but the principles themselves are abstract. They're not concrete. So therefore, there are certain principles that are innate that will stand the test of time, and it does not have to contradict with science because its purpose is separate from science. Now, even when we look at the term science itself and what its connotation is today, it differed from the origin or the etymology of the actual term itself because we've
Right,
attributed different processes to what that term means. Okay, so
right.
I can sit here and give you the spiel in regards to Dr. York's understanding of certain things and say, that's the science. You know what I'm saying?
I don't do that.
So
I
no,
don't
no, no,
listen.
no, no, no,
I'm
no,
a
no.
different. I'm a different
What I'm
breed,
saying is,
brother. I don't do that.
if somebody says that, technically they're not wrong. But now we got to ask, what kind of science are you speaking to me about? There's different fields of science. It's not just one field of science. So
Right.
anthropology is a field of science, and it's an exact science field. So therefore, if we're talking about a culture and we're going to analyze it through the lens of science, just use the terms, the processes, and the analytical methods that is used within that field of anthropology to understand what was going on in that culture, as opposed to going outside of that scope and looking in other areas and forcing it or imposing it upon the realm in which that thing was created. Context is extremely
Now
important in order to fully understand something.
let me say something. You said something earlier that you are a student of pre-exilic Israel, right?
Israelite culture, pre-exilic Israelite culture.
Pre-exilic Israelite
Correct.
culture. And when you say pre-exilic, are
Mm-hmm.
you referring to the exile from Egypt as told in the Torah before they exiled from Egypt, or
So the principles and what we call in Hebrew, you have halakha and you have agadah. So that type of information, even predating the Exodus, but for me, the bulk of it is from the migration into Kemet and the Avaris period, which we know today,
yes?
as could be Pi Ramses later on, or Goshen biblically, all the way into right before the Assyrian exile in 721 and right before the final Babylonian exile in 587 BCE.
Okay,
So there's an
now
accumulation of knowledge culturally
was
during
it
that period of time.
what was it prior to Musa or Moses receiving the Torah?
Yes.
Okay, so
According to the
now you realize that by you saying that you practice the culture of the Israelites prior to Moses receiving the Torah,
Not everything, because historically that would
that
be
totally
inaccurate.
takes you into a whole nother realm, my brother.
Of
That
understanding the
means
principles and
that
applying
means
today to yield results.
that means your Bible, your Torah, all that is thrown away.
Well, I
Because do you know what culture and what way of life these people was living? Now, let me tell you, it's not a
yeah, I
confirmed
could tell
fact
you
that
about it. We can get into it if you
it's
want.
it's not a confirmed fact that this story happened. So when you get into before they
Okay.
migrated into Kemet, you have now when you go to Kemet and ask them who were these people,
They'll
you
tell you
realize that they're
The Amu peoples. They tell you who they are.
the Amu
Correct.
or the Temhu. I think that
They're
who you
not the
talking about.
Temhu. They're not the
I think
Temhu.
that I think
That's not accurate.
I think that who you talking about are the Asiatic Timhu or the Hekachasut.
The Hekachasut is
Hyksos.
referring to one group of people, not all
That's
the
who.
people
That's who.
that was.
That's.
Wait, hold on. Now we're going. Let's get into.
Or the
let's get into
Shasu.
Egyptology. Wait, slow down.
But I don't.
Let's get into,
I'm just
let's
asking.
get
You
into
don't have to go
Egyptology
to.
because that's where you're taking it. You want to go to
I'm
Egyptology
what-
and be accurate when we say certain things?
We.
You said that
Let's say that-
Temhu are the Asiatics, and then you link
Yeah.
the
Temhu are the
Hekachasut.
Asiatics.
Hold on. Then you link the Hekachasut peoples with being the of all encompassing of the peoples in Canaan or Canaan. That's not true.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying
Okay,
that. I'm
go
not
ahead.
saying that.
I'm
I'm
gonna let you
not saying
talk.
that. I'm not saying. I don't. Listen. Let's say this for part 2. That way we could pull our resources.
Oh yeah,
but
please
now,
do. Because
okay.
what
But-
I will do, just so you understand, I am well versed. I'm not an expert, right? But I am well versed
I
in regards
understand
to
that. I know that.
Egyptology. Okay, I do a lot of studies in Egyptology, just like I do in Syriology, etc. So when you make certain terms, what I'm going to hold you to is to give me a primary source for that. So if you're saying that the Asiatics or the Amu peoples are called the Temku peoples, and that was understood within its
I didn't
historical
say
context
that. I
of
didn't
the
say
scribes that wrote it, I need you
I
to give me a
didn't say
primary
that.
that's
I
ascribed to the.
didn't say that.
So then what did you
I
say?
didn't say that.
What did you
I
say?
said I think the people you referring to were not the Amu, they're the Timhu, but you just don't want
Prove
to
it.
accept it.
Prove it right now. Give me a source.
Because
Because I could bring up primaries for Temhu. Let me bring up primaries for Temhu. And
listen, let me say it one more time.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that the Amu are the Timhu. I'm saying
I know they're different.
that. Okay, I understand that. I'm saying that you think you're connecting with the Amu, but I think you're connecting with the Timhu. The reason why.
Go ahead. Let me hear this.
The reason why is because when you do the history of the Shasu, Israelite, or whatever you want to call it,
Shasu. Okay.
the Hekachasut or whatever,
But there wasn't
the
Shasu.
ancient. That was you say.
No. I have Donald Redford's work. Hold on. I can list for you scholars who have done field work on this and give you primaries. It's not the same thing. The Shasus
I can give you.
existed outside on the fringes of what was known as society, and they were always an issue in regards to the Kemetic peoples for various reasons, right? And I'm gonna say
And
this to you, I'm gonna let
so were the Temhu, and so were the Hekachasut.
you gonna go
That's
to the
what I'm
Hesu
trying to
as
tell
well?
you.
Then the Hesu
No,
as well?
those are pure. Those are pure Africans. The people I'm talking about are invaders.
Invaders, according to
According to the ancient Egyptians, that's why they called them Asiatics. They were enemies. The 9 bold.
so
That's
then
why
the
they called
Hesu.
them.
Wait. Then the Hesu were not enemies as well?
Enemies, but they were indigenous to Africa, brother. I'm talking about different people that came
But you
from
said
different
everybody
places.
came from Africa.
Man, are you serious,
That's
man?
what you said.
Where did the heck? Now you. Let's slow down. Hold on. We go
get into bioarchaeology with you as well, so we can analyze the skeletal structures of those that lived in Lower Kemet or Lower Egypt and compare them with what we see in Upper Egypt and see if there's any affinities there. There's a whole method to doing that. So,
brother,
and I don't mean to cut you while you're talking. All I'm saying is, when you speak to me, I'm gonna be very technical and I'm gonna give you references. So you're saying that the Temhu, this is what I'm assuming. If I'm wrong, correct me.
My God.
You're saying that what I'm following has been laid down not by the Amu peoples, but another group of peoples that put the narrative together for us today. Is that what you're saying?
Listen closely, brother.
Yes or no?
I have not pulled any sources yet. I have not produced any PowerPoints yet.
No problem. Go ahead.
What I'm saying is, I think or believe, and you know I don't believe. I'm just telling you, just from this conversation, I'm thinking that you're getting the people mixed up, because the people who you talking about that were pre-exilic Israelites were not native to Africa. They were foreign invaders and enemies to the ancient Africans. So what I'm trying to tell you is that the Hekachasut, the Temhu, Asiatic, whatever, all they had different names for were not original. So that means that if you are an African by blood, DNA, and ancestry, that these people who you are tying yourself to, which you already said pre-exilic Israelites, meaning the Torah is gone. You have no ties to the Torah because you are identifying with pre-exilic Israelites before the law was given to Moses. So that's taking you up.
Hold on.
You see what I'm saying? You shouldn't even use the Bible. You should throw the Bible in the trash can.
Israelites. Hold on. There's no Israelites before Moshe. I'm assuming before Abraham, right? So the culture is an accumulation of things, not just one thing. Its zenith we
Throw
have
the Bible
during
away,
the
brother.
Iron Age
Get
period,
rid of that Bible,
when
man.
the
I'm telling
text
you,
was
you'll be
beginning to
better.
be laid down according to the consensus of academia. And you can check in with the Oriental Institute. I got 4 resources there that will attest to this. And these are professors, 1 adjunct, 3 active professors that will attest to this. So when you say certain terms and you make certain arguments, that's fine. All I'm going to say is you have to substantiate what it is that you're saying. Now,
I am.
Let me lay out for you.
Yeah, I am.
When you read Ancient Israel by Lester Grab, then you understand what it is that I'm explaining to you, right? You understand what it is
I
that I'm
do.
saying to you.
I understand what you're saying.
You do?
Now, I understand what you're saying.
Hold on.
Now, I want to wrap it.
Keep talking. I'm gonna charge my phone real quick.
Okay.
Keep talking.
Because I just want to show you something to wrap this up, and then that way we can go into part 2 this weekend. We can provide our sources and do all the good stuff. But basically, what I'm saying is, if you're telling me that you're into the pre-exilic Israel culture prior to Moses receiving the Torah, you talking about something totally different. It's totally different. You're not bound to the Torah because you're saying you're taking it back prior to the laws that were given. Now we know that according to the Torah, Abraham was given laws. It said that he followed the laws and commandments of the Most High. Now, how would he be following those laws if Moses hadn't received them yet? But I don't even want to go into that. I just want to
So my brother Khonsu, I heard what you said about Abraham and what laws he followed. So look, let me say this.
Can you say that? Let's save that for part 2, brother.
You sure?
Let's say that. Yes.
Okay. So what I'm gonna say to you is this. Look, what I'm gonna say to you is this. All right. I think you're a cool brother. I'm glad that I was able to speak to you like this because online you sound crazy, right? But you're actually a cool brother. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's, you know why? Because a lot of people make derogatory. When people like Chuck Morgan, I goes in on him. I'm totally disrespectful to him. I'm not that way to you. If I have said anything, disrespectful, I apologize. But I respect people. Yeah, you know. But other people that just get derogatory.
I think you're a cool brother. But I think online your personality is different. Are you a Gemini?
Cancer, you close.
You know what I mean? But what I want people to see is that even though we may disagree on some things, we can still have an amicable discussion. You know?
Yeah.
I'm not gonna come in here and curse you out and talk crazy because I really want to hear what you have to say. And I think it's vice versa. So this is why I appreciate this build and why I want to give you the utmost respect when speaking to you because I want your voice to be heard so I can properly address it, right? So I like that theory that you made about the temple. Now you know you're gonna have to defend that because I'm gonna give you primaries on who was identified as those people from
I know
Egyptology sources.
And
so you gotta
guess
be able
what?
to give me primary sources too.
I'm gonna give you the same source that I busted Wu Jiao with.
Oh no, don't talk about Wu Jiao. Wu Jiao was an OG in the game. All right.
Listen,
he puts in that work.
Wu Jiao is a ex-Nuwaubian.
Okay.
That's why.
So
that's the only.
A lot of other people. Okay.
Okay. Well, what I'm saying is, the same way Wu Jiao tries to dance around who the Temhu were by sticking to Northern Libyan. But guess what I busted them with?
What?
The haploid group of the Temhu Northern Libyans.
The haploid group would be
I busted it
in the literature.
No. And that's what y'all say. See, you kind of got an Amun Ra squad mentality. That's what they say. Yeah, listen.
Okay, go ahead.
They will say that, but how can you, if the text say Northern Libyan, and your haploid group ties you into a specific race, you can be Northern Libyan and whatever race, Chinese might have migrated there. But we'll get into that. But let me
But
I just want to say this.
the Libyan people was an admixture. You're aware of that, right?
That's my point.
Okay.
That's my
Who's
point.
arguing
That was mixed up. Wu Jia was arguing that. And he's buck dancing around that because he tries to prove Champollion and Gerald Massey and Dr. York wrong when they say that the Timhu were of European stock. But their haploid group tells you they were of European stock. Listen.
They were an admixture, so like
you're right, exactly.
What they would say would be like the archaic Berbers and Europeans as well, because the Mediterranean Sea is really close to Europe, and a lot of those people settled along those banks as well. So if you just do the research, you understand that. But I think
he buck danced. I'm telling you, he buck danced around that. He buck danced around that, and you just confirmed it.
So,
but listen.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Well, this is what I want to This is what I want to this is very important for me to wrap up because I want you to understand this, and I want other people to understand what Nuwaubian is. Okay. And I just want to read this real quick.
Go ahead.
This is from Sacred Records of Atum Re, Part 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it says, and this is what I was explaining to you. It says, right knowledge, wisdom, and understanding are Nuwaubian. And Nuwaubian is the spiritual science of all. Now, Chuck Morgan tried to say Nuwaubian is religion. He pulled some old stuff back when we were walking through religious degrees. This book came out in 1999. It says, and Nuwaubian is the spiritual science of all woolly-haired people throughout the universe. These scrolls are not the science of Nuwaubian itself, but the diligent reading and diligent study and profound understanding of these scrolls will open the mind, tear down the barriers, and qualify the mind for the universal science called Nuwaubian in the ancient Egyptian order. So I just want, and the reason I wanted
order.
Yeah. And the reason I wanted to say that because a lot of people, like you said earlier, have a misconception that all the books that Dr. York authored is Nuwaubian, and it's not, because he just told you that.
Does it represent Nuwaubian?
Let me read it again for you.
No,
hold on, because I don't want to take it out of context. It says these scrolls are not the science.
Dr. York wrote that, right?
Yeah, just listen.
Cool.
These scrolls.
Context. Go ahead.
These scrolls are not the science Nuwaubian itself, but the diligent reading, diligent study, and profound understanding of these scrolls will open the mind, tear down the barriers, and qualify the mind for the universal science called Nuwaubian.
The universal science. So he's the one that's the provenance of that term. That means he originated that term Nuwaubian.
No, he did not originate that term.
Where did Nuwaubian come from?
Nuwaubian is a variation of the Kemetic or Medu word Nuwupti, and what's his name? The African brother from the African brother, the top dog with the Medu.
You talking about are you talking about current?
Sheikh Anta Diop. Sheikh Anta Diop.
Okay.
Sheikh Anta Diop explains that the word Nubia is a rendition of the Medu word Nuwupti. And in the book Jesus Found in Egypt, Dr. York explained, and it's clear the three-part lateral NWB or NWP. Nuwaubian is simply a Kemetic or Medu word as found in Wallace Bud's dictionary. Nuwaubian is there.
That's old, but look,
it don't matter if it's so what.
No, it does matter because there has been.
No, it don't matter.
Oh wait, there's been several academic.
Stop, man.
Since that.
Nuwaubian is Nuwupti. Listen,
right,
it's Nuwupti.
We're gonna get into
Nuwupti.
We're gonna get into that.
But that's why I just wanted to. I wanted to close out with that.
Cool.
Because to let everybody know, and this weekend I'm open, Saturday, Sunday, and we'll do part 2, and that's when I'll be on my MacBook,
cool.
And we'll do the whole.
So let me. So what I want to say is I appreciate you for coming on and having this discussion. I knew that you knew what you was talking about, but the way you was bringing it out, it was kind of offensive, right? But I have tough skin, so it didn't bother me. But I know it probably offended a couple other people. So I was like, all right, let me
Yes.
give this brother an opportunity for us to just spar a little bit or shadow box a little bit, not shadow box, slap box a little bit, just to kind of like fill each other out before we actually have like a real good sit down discussion when we have our resources in front of us. So I want to thank you for that. What I
Appreciate it.
will prove to you when we have our discussion is that you have a lot of misconceptions as it pertains to Israelite culture, and I don't blame you for that. I blame where the source of where you're getting the bulk of your information from, and we will address that once we have our discussion, okay? Number
Okay.
two, I understand that just like Dr. York, the objective of going through the various schools of thought is so that way you can be able to meet people where they're at to bring them to higher learning. I understand
Yes.
that concept, and he has laid that out as a consistent theme through all of his rebuttal books, where people would challenge Dr. York about the things he said. And he's like, "Well, don't take my word for it." Then he would give you a source like the Sun. Now you know the Sun is a tabloid. That is not an authentic source, but that's neither here nor there. But anyway, so what I'm saying is he would give
Hold
you
on.
wait.
Hold
No, you
on.
had your
He
time. Let me
gives you
talk.
no,
Let me talk.
that's for other stuff.
Hold on. Let me
He
talk.
Dr. York sources Sheikh Antediop, Dr.
So hold
Ben,
on, wait, hold
even
on.
Ben Sertima,
I
a lot of
got you.
people.
Hold on. We're gonna get into all those sources because I got their information as well. So look, let's do this. So what I was saying was, so what I would say is that he said, don't take his word for it. He tells you to go and research outside of the claims that he's making to prove him right or prove him wrong. And simply that's what I did. Some things he said is correct, some things he said is incorrect. And some of those incorrect things are some of the I would say some of the presuppositional understandings that you have when approaching the Israelite culture. Notice I didn't say Bible. I said Israelite culture because the Tanakh evolved
It's
out of
really no
Israelite
such
culture,
thing, but
right? So no, it's not the same thing. It's definitely not the
I
same
said it's
thing.
no. I said it's no such thing as an
As what?
Israelite culture.
As
There's no
Israelite
such thing
culture?
as an Israelite culture. No,
Now you know that's incorrect.
it's not incorrect.
So if I prove to you that Israelite culture exists, will you stop teaching using
The
archaeology?
Israelites, listen, who you call Israelites don't have a
You
culture. They
saying who I
borrowed their
call. I'm not
culture
gonna
from
it's not gonna be based
others.
on what I say. I'm gonna get primary data to prove this.
Okay, all right.
That there was a culture called Israel and they did exist. And they had ethnic markers that made them distinct from the other surrounding cultures. But
Everybody got that. I'm talking. Okay, all right, okay,
so
all
who
right.
do you think I'm
I got
talking
you.
about then? Who do you think I'm
That's
talking about?
we gonna explain. Listen,
I spend a
what
lot
I
of time at the Oriental Institute, and I've
but
taken
listen,
a time.
but
To go
listen.
through the libraries. Let me finish. To go through the
All right.
libraries, whether it was physically or digital libraries, and speak to experts in the field to best ascertain what this term means, who is referring to, and how accurate that the text is reflecting this culture, and or if the text has literary devices that's used to teach that culture that makes it distinct from what's actually found in the archaeological record. I'm going to parse these things out and we're going to deal with them piece by piece so that way I can build for you an understanding of where I'm at today with my particular worldview. I'm going to show you how to do this. And I'm going to show you the best methodology, which is the inductive methodology that I use to get from point A to point Z and walk you through it to understand certain precepts before you even get to reading a text. You got to understand this stuff
Okay.
first. And this is what I teach my community. Now, to wrap up what I was trying to wrap up what I was saying, all I was simply saying was Dr. York said, and I give him credit for that. Don't believe me. Don't take my word for it. Go research. And that's why I said some of the things he said is true, and I will not take that from him. But some things he said is false, even as it pertains to the Hebrew Israelite paradigm that I simply want to make corrections on because we do our due diligence on behalf
Bring
of our
that. Bring all
teachers
that.
when we're able to update the things that they say, because that is how you know you're actually growing the way that they intended for you to grow. If they didn't want you to grow that way, then they're a cult and they're hiding you away from growth. So the second thing I want to say, I want to bring out Mishle 1:8 or Proverbs 1:8, and it simply says, Shema beni musar abika we al titos torat im mika. And very simply, Shema is what we say means here, but it really means to observe, right? And sometimes we say it means to obey. Beni means my son. Yod suffix is the possessive construct. Musar, which means the instruction. It could be an instruction. It could be a mandate or anything of that nature. Abika, ab means father. Ika, abi, your father. We'al, and not, or you have the negative privative, and not, or titos, which we would get forsake. And now here's the key word, Torat. Torat. Which means what? Mother.
Plural.
Mekah. Well, that the as opposed when we're talking about the plural
Oh, you said
suffix,
Okay.
but in this case,
Okay.
means mother, of your mother.
Okay.
So when we talk about
And in
Torah,
Arabic, it's ummi,
correct.
same word.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know Arabic a little bit as well. So when we
It's the
go
same.
into
Arabic and Hebrew is the same.
they're not the same. They're sister
Yeah, it
languages.
is.
No, they're sister
They're the
languages.
same.
Meaning that there was a Proto-Semitic language that caused the stream of all these other languages that you have, and we actually have a date on when that actually occurred. And I'll bring to you the Bayesian phylogenetic method so you can see how they ascertained that. We're going to get into that if you want to bring that up. So let's slow down for a second.
I know about
the
all
key
that,
word
brother.
here is the
I've been
person
doing this.
who's
I'm
the
trying to tell you.
speaker. What'd you say?
No, go ahead.
Okay, cool. The person who is the speaker is saying simply, obey or observe, my son, the instruction of your father, and don't forsake the Torah. Don't forsake the law of Mekah, of your mother. So when it comes to understanding on a simple level of what Torah is, it is simply, and I'm going to lay it out like this, and I try to make it very simple.
But you said Torah didn't mean law, and Torah doesn't mean law. You said that, man.
The mother
it's
has
got like 3 or
role.
4 different meanings.
Hold on. The mother it has nothing to do with meanings. When you go to trilateral roots, you can be able to determine what is the shoresh of a particular word. It's not really that deep. But when we get into simply what the Torah is, it is 2 things. That word musar and that word Torah is important. The father has a role and the mother has a role. The father's role is to create boundaries outside of the home, in which it's his job to protect those boundaries. The only way he can protect those boundaries is that those who are within the boundaries abide by what those points are, so they can receive the protection and the provision of the father based on the territory in which he owns, possesses, and operates. The mother's role within that territory that has been outlined and protected and guarded by the father is to give the milk of instruction, the things that a child needs to be raised up to a certain point before the father's role can be imbued upon the adult child. So simply, Torah is the milk that you receive from your mother figuratively. And that is the same thing when we talk about the deity of this culture.
So Torah doesn't mean law.
Hold on.
Because you get into hold on, this supposed to be an ending. You get into a whole nother.
No, because you keep cutting me off. Let me finish my bill and I'm gonna let it go. I just wanted to read 2 things and I was done. So what I'm saying is the root is the word yara, which simply means a direction of something. It's an archery term, which means the direction.
It also means law.
One thing is aimed at another point. Hold on. This is what
I just pulled it up in the
when we
concordance.
go into it. So
My God.
Let me finish. If you don't want to hear it, that's fine. But what I'm doing is I'm putting things within its proper perspective for you, so you can understand that you.
But it means law too.
Culture.
It means law and commandment. That's one of the meanings.
But you don't understand the culture of the Israelites. If you understand,
because I'm not an Israelite, you're not an Israelite. You can't go to Israel right now. Do you know what they doing to black people in Israel? Do you know what they doing to black people in Israel? You black, DivineProspect. You are a black man. Your people come from Africa. Israelites do not respect Africans, nor do they respect American Negroes.
Americans respect black people in America?
American Negroes have no authority when it comes to Israel, the Torah, or nothing.
In this country, yes or no?
Come on, man. That's what I'm saying. You are.
What will I be persecuted in Africa?
You subscribing
right now,
to people that are not of your same race, brother.
And we will have. You can put that on the table too.
Who controls the Israelite community, doctrine, teachings, all that? Euro Jews.
What I teach, they don't control it. Euro Jews don't control what I teach.
Let's go we're gonna go to part 2 this weekend.
You're gonna have to show me how Euro Jews control what I teach. I would love to see this.
I didn't say they control. That's why I said you trying to start your own religion.
What's your descendancy?
You took 80 books. You took 80 books from Dr. York. You studied a little Hebrew language, and you did a little anthropology and archaeology research. And now you about to start your own religion. I'm telling you, watch. In the next 10 years,
there's nothing being started.
You're gonna call it the new pre-exilic.
You're not
Israelite.
aware of what I do, so that's fine. But I have an organization. It's
I
called,
know that, brother. I'm just fucking with you.
I
I
understand.
know that. I know
So
that.
I have an organization that subscribes to restorative culture, establishing communities, and implementing autonomy. It has an end state. The end state is autonomy. Without that,
Okay.
I don't care
Hold
where
on.
on this planet you go, you will not survive. So you and a collective group of individuals that agree to the same principles that you do have to implement autonomy in order for you to have any degree of survival anywhere you go on the face of this planet. We know the
All
powers
right.
that
This is
be
the
that
last.
rule
This is
even
the,
Africa. You think Africa is independent of Europe?
This is the last question
I don't
I
know if you
have for
understood
you.
about the Berlin Conference in 1884.
I don't listen. I don't want to listen. Listen. I need to get some rest. We're gonna do this weekend.
Oh, okay, cool.
We're gonna
No problem.
we're gonna get the
Go get some
primary.
sleep.
We're gonna get our primaries, and we're gonna go in.
Oh yeah, let's do that.
So just let me know what the date would be, either Saturday or Sunday,
It'll
any
probably
time.
be
It don't
Sunday
matter.
because Saturday I got something.
That's
to do.
perfect.
So
I
I'm
know,
gonna
and
let
that's
you
the
go
Sabbath.
again.
You can't debate on the Sabbath, right?
Why not? I prefer not to, but I mean, it's a period of rest. Why would I want to debate when I'm relaxing from being off work?
That's what I just said. You're not allowed to debate on the
Well, who said
Sabbath.
I'm not allowed to do that? Where is that at? Can you show me where it says I'm not allowed to do that?
Yahuwah said that.
Where? Where does it say that I can't do that? I want you to find that when we have our next discussion. Be sure you find that, okay?
All right. Hey, Sunday.
Bring your
Sunday.
sources. It's not.
I got
love
sources,
you, my brother.
man.
I have a lot of love for you as a
This
person.
was all off the
This
top of the
is not
dome.
going to be good for you. I'm telling you right
Man,
now.
come on, man.
I love you, my brother, but this is not going to be good for you, man. It's not going to be good for
All
you.
right. All right.
I'll holler at you, Khonsu. Peace.
All right, brother. Peace.
Peace. All right. So since he didn't want to get the information I was trying to give him my closing, I'll give it for the people that's still on here. For people that's here, those of you who may be new to watch Kingdom Harbinger Ministries on YouTube, anybody in the link, I mean, y'all can put that in the chat for me, so that way people can go to the channel. It's Kingdom Harbinger Ministries, and that's on YouTube. Make sure you go and subscribe to Kingdom Harbinger Ministries on YouTube. Share this video with any Nuwaubian that you know. This video and the previous video with all the Nuwaubians that you know, all the Israelites that you know. The thing that I will say is that I make it my objective not to berate people, not to disrespect people, not to do ad hominems, because I sincerely want to hear what they have to say. Because if you give people enough time to lay things out, they'll create ropes for themselves and they'll trip over it. You know what I'm saying? Or like people say, they eventually hang themselves. You know what I'm saying? So I make sure I create a conducive environment for dialogue, whether we laugh, we joke, we get serious at times. But at the end of the day, I don't hate that brother. You feel what I'm saying? And I don't hate anybody. The only people I hate is anybody that threatens my life and my family's life. Then I have a hatred towards you. If you don't control any aspect or affect any aspect of that, I have no hatred towards you. Because if you attack me or my family, I have a righteous hatred towards you. But if you're not doing that, you can say whatever you want. I got tough skin. People say all types of craziness about me, about other people. It don't bother me because it's not true. I don't respond to lies. It don't affect me. I just ignore it. Like, okay, if I give it life, then it maybe have some truth to it. No, I just leave it alone. Like, all right, well, whatever. It doesn't bother me because that person has no power to affluently affect what I do in my day-to-day life. So I don't care about that. But what I want to do is ensure that when I have builds, I create a conducive environment so that we can hear fairly both sides. Y'all was able to hear things that he was saying, hear things that I was saying, and this is the type of environment that leaders in our community have to strive for, because even though you disagree with somebody, you don't have to disrespect them. You just don't have to do that. That's not a sign of maturity if you're doing that. You understand what I'm saying? So let me finish what I was saying, all right? I'm gonna go back to what I was saying, right? Like I said, Khonsu, he's really not ready for this because he already exposed some of his sources, and it's not good. Like I said, I have thousands of documents, whether it's articles, whether it's ebooks. Then I have physical books. Most of my library is in New York in storage somewhere. I have some out here with me, and I'm still purchasing more books to build up my physical library. But I read scientific articles all the time. I read religious articles all the time, anthropology articles all the time, science in regards to astronomy, in regards to biology. I read a lot. That doesn't mean I know everything, but I read a lot. And I read enough to know that when certain people step into an arena that they're not familiar with, it's not going to be a good look. I gave him a prominent source for him to go back and read so you can understand what my position is. When we go to historiography or historical graphical analysis in regards to the context of a literature, and we go to interdisciplinary studies that deal with archaeology, history, linguistics, and the actual material culture itself, not just the immaterial culture, you'll get a working knowledge or understanding, or mechanical knowledge or understanding of how the text came to be. When you understand the text outside of that context, you are missing the mark. So what I was trying to simply do for this brother is explain to him what Torah was. It comes from a root yara, which is yod resh hey. And that word has a specific meaning, which means to throw or to shoot something, and the trajectory in which something is thrown or something is shot. And when you go to Torah, it has to do with the instructions simply. And when we look at it from a human level, not even getting all ethereal or anything, from a human level, it is simply what you receive for your mother to operate within the boundaries of the protection and provision of your father. It is that simple. The mother is the nurturer. So Torah is meant to nurture somebody. It even has the term rain. You understand what I'm saying? From the root word yara. You know what I'm saying? So to understand what this is, customs, direction, instructions. You know, we have mitzvah, which means law, but sometimes they translate Torah to law. And I disagree with that because it is not looking at it from the cultural perspective. All of these things first started within the home. If you don't understand basic principles in a home, then you should not even read any historical text. You understand what I'm saying? So we got to get people out of, even people who hate the Bible, get them out of the religious dogmatic way of thinking and get them to look at the text objectively in light of the interdisciplinary studies done on it, and be able to extract the cultural principles and apply it today to see if it yields results. All the other stuff that he's saying, we can address, we can deal with. When he's saying, talking about the Temhu, which you know, Jabari says the Tamhu, there's primaries on what that is, who that is. He's saying, oh no, but your understanding comes from those people. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. Well, the Euro Jews control what you, no, they don't. Because when I talk to Euro Jews and I explain to them what my understanding is in regards to what they would say is they're mostly concerned of how much Talmud do you know, right? How much Gemara do you know? How much of the dialogues between the sages and the rabbis do you know, right? How much halakha are you actually practicing? What is your Agadah understanding of this narrative? Those are their concerns. Mine is based on what's called, people call Afro-Asiatic understanding. And even that term Asiatic is kind of, for me, is a little bit difficult when I subscribe to the notion of geology and I talk about the tectonic plates and explain that the African plate encompasses what we call Israel. So there was a high influence that what we see is when the Israelites was ever in any kind of dire straits, where did they run to? They went to Africa. Why didn't they go run to Mesopotamia when they got into trouble and all these type of issues? They went to Africa. There's a reason for that. And that's why I said, when I see that people don't really study Lower Kemet and they don't really look at the excavational findings in situ in that region to be able to cross compare or do a cross cultural analysis between those in Upper Kemet and those in Lower Kemet, you are mistaken for a lot of things. You don't even know the historical context behind the Norma palette. That's why I said, go and read Visible Language. That is an excellent book. And Emily Tita, who's one of the editors on that book, I've met her in person. I've spoken to her in person and via other external correspondence. I even have a picture of me and her up on my page. James P. Allen, who does the grammar in regards to Kemet, I got a picture of me and him on the page. I've been to several lectures of his. I have his work on Middle Egyptian. So simply what I'm saying is, I realize that our people, when I say our people, I'm not even talking about people who subscribe to Israelites. Our people are just extremely dogmatic. This is why is a lack of progress in regards to advancing towards autonomy. And this is simply what we're trying to do, is restore culture to our community to get them out of the religious dogmatic understanding, so that way you can see how organic, cohesive, and simple creating a community it is. I subscribe to communalism. Look that up. Communalism. One of the roots of community is to commune. We are not a community if we cannot commune together. And we cannot be a cohesive community without communalism. So these are certain terms that you have to understand and be able to displace your contemporary thinking and put yourself back into that time period. But you got to understand topography. You got to understand geology. You got to understand meteorology. You got to understand diet. You got to understand proximity to rivers, proximity to seas, proximity to oceans. You got to understand the different forestation that grew in that region. You got to understand a lot of different things before you can even touch the text. What is horticulture? And how did the trade of the northern Israelites differ from those of the southern Israelites? If you don't understand these things, you're going to be clueless. If you don't understand why they needed a monarch in order for them to survive within a political climate, you don't know what it's very difficult for you to objectively share the information in the text. When I go to him and I tell him Torah is simply showing somebody in which direction to go. Simply. And the mother is upbringing the child so that way the child knows what to do within the confines of protection that the father is providing. And when the child gets older, then the father teaches the child what provision and protection is. Okay? That is his job. So when we read, like, for example, the book of Ecclesiastics, the author who wrote that is pretty much what they were sharing. When we look at read the teachings of Batal Tep, what do you think that was about? The instructions of Batal, the instructions of Merakari. What do you think these things are about? It's simply an elder trying to train the youth on how to go about things in its simplest form before you understand the deep jurisprudence. Before you get to the point of jurisprudence, you got to understand how things operate within the home. And it does not have to be super deep. I know sometimes people are like, oh, divine, the stuff you say is deep. It's really not when you look at the building blocks of what it is that I'm trying to convey. You understand what I'm saying? So when we get to the point of a theocracy, that developed a little bit later, right? But before the theocracy, understanding the cultural paradigm, Torah is simply what is received from the mother. So when we go into, for example, the word in regards to Musar, when it talks about the instruction from the father, and the root for that is Yasar. And Yasar means to discipline, to chasten, to admonish. So the father's job is to discipline, to chasten, and to admonish. Because his job is to ensure that when there's discipline, when there's chastening, and when there's admonishment within the home, the child will know to respect boundaries that are set by the authoritative figure and their life. You understand order and structure. The mother's job in regards to Yara, which has to do with the instruction and direction, is to show the child how to circumnavigate within that border of protection. When you understand diplomacy, domestically and internationally, those things make sense when you understand how the home is supposed to be structured. It's not that deep, but it's for people who want to take religiosity and impose it on a culture. So when he's telling me that you learn this stuff from Euro Jews, ain't no Euro Jews that I know teach the stuff that I teach. I don't know one that do that. I have no clue one that do that. If he exists, I have never seen him or met him or heard of any of his works before. That's interesting. The purpose of restorative culture is so that you can own your own culture. You cannot have autonomy if you don't own your own culture. There's no way you can have autonomy if you can't own your own culture. So when he's talking about, I learned it from Euro Jews, what Euro Jews taught me, the minchag that I teach in regards to the things that's pre-exilic, concerning, let's say, casting lots, concerning building stone altars, concerning libations. Where did I learn that? Oh, that's from the halakha and the minchag, the customs of West Africans, who okay, and that West African template can also be found in pre-exilic Israel. Oh, that's interesting. And the route that I take in order to reconstruct culture. And did I not do several lectures on this? I know I did, but that's fine. That's fine. So let me end it off with this. What I wanted to do is just read Proverbs 1:8 because it simplifies what Torah is. It doesn't have to be deep. It becomes deep when you want to get into deeper levels of it, like the sud level of it. You know what I'm saying? But at the surface level, when you study the culture, you understand these basic principles and you say, oh, so that is how the home is supposed to function. The mother is to teach the Torah to the son, and the father to teach Musar to the son. Yasar is the root word, or the shoresh for Musar, right? So we get the word from instructions or instructions from itself. And then when we get to the mother and her doing her part of her role, she's not really there to discipline. She's to instruct the child to avoid discipline. But children, the way we are, we're gonna get into trouble anyway. That's the nature of the curiosity of a child. That's why when people teach original sin, I'm like, what? What? That St. Augustine doctrine? No, we're gonna throw that out the window because that's not cultural. You understand what I'm saying? So it's working hand in hand, the feminine and the masculine working together. When we look at the Most High, when he talks about Torah, he's given a basic principle that's saying the feminine elements or the feminine principle of the Creator, who's neither male nor female. He encompasses all of these traits and these attributes, and it's been split and placed in the woman and placed in the man. But he has all these attributes. When he talks about the Torah, this is simply what he's saying. The same instruction you should be learning from your home, and the same upbringing that you got from your home is the same upbringing you'll have within a theocratic society, because you understand structure and order. It's very simple. But most of our people do not want to abide by those methods, and that's fine. It's fine. So let me end off on this, family. I'm gonna hang up because I'm about to go. Yael, I think he told me his ethnicity before, but we're gonna bring it up, not to use that as an ad hominem or a red herring, but I want to make some points in regards to that, because that's extremely important, right? Because a few things he said is kind of contradictory to what his ethnicity may be, but I'm gonna let him explain it, and I'm not gonna straw man it. But nevertheless, when somebody says that they want to debate me on the Israelite culture that I subscribe to, you got to first understand what I'm studying and what work I put out. I can see if he critiqued videos that I put out, cool, but I try to put sources in everything I put out. You understand what I'm saying? So you're not critiquing me, you're critiquing the source. Now, if you want to have a discussion in regards to my interpretation, that's another story, right? But simply what I want to say is when we have this discussion, hopefully it'll be Sunday. And I'm not promising anything, but I'm going to work towards making it Sunday. I'm going to have all my references in front of me. I'm not even going to do a PowerPoint because I'm not going to have time between now and do it. If I did a PowerPoint, it'll be more cohesive, more structured, and more sequential, right? But I'm not even going to do a PowerPoint. I'm just going to sit here with my thousands of sources and just pick things based on what he's saying. Just pick resources and read them and let him argue with the resource. It's that simple. All right. So with that, family, thank you for watching. I appreciate y'all for your support. Again, subscribe to Kingdom Harbinger Ministries. All right. If you want to know how you can donate to this R&D that's being shared to you right now, you can do $ DivineProspect for Cash App, PayPal. You can do it. PayPal is going to be, or let's say GoFundMe. That's going to be, look up Kingdom Harbinger on GoFundMe if you want to donate that way. And PayPal, you can send PayPal too. That's called Purpose to Serve if you have paypal.me. If you want to donate. If you want resources based on the things that I'm saying, you can email me at kingdomharbinger@gmail.com, and I'll send you whatever resources that I have. I get a lot of emails, so it may take some time to get to you, but I will get to you and just send you resources so you can edify and equip yourself. Okay. If somebody needs some assistance with something, if we can help, let us know. Because anytime you guys financially support us, spiritually support us, or just share what it is that we're saying, it helps us help other people. And I appreciate everything that everybody that's watching this has done in regards to empowering KHM to do what we do. You understand what I'm saying? But anyway, family, much love to y'all in the chat. Thank y'all for watching and supporting this. And I'll holla at y'all soon. Peace and shalom.